I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and this is round 5 of the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship 2025, where we'll be finishing all the events in Group C of the preliminary stage. Portugal and Romania are about to face off in about 6 minutes, and here's what it means for the tournament table. Earlier today, Thailand defeated Mexico 4-1, which puts Thailand at 4 wins in 5 matches. This hasn't been updated yet, but this is what happens, really. And they also have a pretty good tiebreaker. So this means that even if Romania, who currently have only 1 loss, so they're on 3 out of 4, even if they're to win against Portugal 5-0, they're still not going to reach second place in the group. But Romania still have a lot to play for, because the way the system works that there are 7 groups with 5 or 6 teams each, and the top 2 teams from each group qualify. But in addition, there are 2 spots for the best performing third team. And if Romania wins big today, they will be in 3rd place, but they also will be with a good tiebreaker. And then when they get compared to other 3rd place teams from the other groups, they might just qualify. So this is do or die for Romania. Not only do they have to win against Portugal, but they have to hope to win big. For Portugal, who currently have 1 victory in 4 matches, at this point it is not about playoffs, but it is about the final tournament standings. It is about pride and honor, of course. Not the best tournament for Portugal, who have previously finished in the semifinals, most notably in 2022. So anything below that for them must feel like a downgrade, but it is what it is. Gotta take a year off and maybe do some homework for next year. But still, a lot to play for, because if Portugal wins now, even if they don't win big, they will be in sole 4th place in the group with 2 victories out of 5. They will leapfrog Mexico. Mexico is currently ahead of Portugal due to Mexico's better tiebreaker. Oh, wait, actually, no. Yeah, because Mexico lost to Thailand, so Mexico's tiebreaker is now worse, and Portugal is, in fact, in the 4th place. But if Portugal loses today, their tiebreaker is going to be worse than Mexico's again, and then they're going to be in 5th place again, or maybe even in 6th place. If they were to lose big today, for example, if they lose 5-0, Portugal actually risks being the last in the group below Lithuania. So you can see that Lithuania also has 1 match 1 out of 5. Notably, the win was against Portugal, and their tiebreaker is -7 with 9 duels won and 16 duels lost. Portugal's tiebreaker is at -4. So if they lose 5-0, for example, then the tiebreaker is going to be at -9. So still a lot to play for Portugal, and the final tournament standings have something to do not just with pride and honor and positive emotions, and that would be sufficient in its own right, but it also has a lot to do for the world rankings of the teams, for the changes in the rankings, which in turn impact the group draws for the next year. The system is a bit tricky to explain, but basically the better your ranking is, the easier, quote-unquote, easier opponents you get in your next year's championship group draw. So the stakes are clear. Now, what are actually the team's chances? If we look at the lineups here, we see the usual suspects, pretty much. So Romania starting with their standard 5. On table 1, we have the fastest player in the world, Ervin G, who's going to be Ervin Gal, who's going to be playing against David Ventura, Mestri 77. Roughly even ratings there, and in fact, at the moment, if you have a look, Ervin's rate today, historic low of 484. Don't think much about it. His peak rating is over 700, and the dip in rating has to do mainly with probably playing some casual games which you shouldn't have been playing. Here, roughly equal, I would say Ervin is going to be the favorite despite David's rating, which is currently superior, of 518. And he'll definitely be putting time pressure as one of the fastest players in the world. Licinho Ferreira on table 2 will be the underdog to the reigning world number 3 from the 2024 in-person championships, one of the Carcassonne brothers, Bogdan Kurkan with a solid 642 rating, who has also been a frequent guest on my streams. Those of you who have watched this channel long enough will of course know. On table 3, we have the 2020 Mind Sports Olympiad gold medalist, Ricardo Araújo, with the screen name Sport R, playing against the 2022 world champion, Arpad Ger, with the screen name G Rappa. Here, I mean, world champion beats anything, so G Rappa has to be the favorite. Sporter, no slouch, maybe like 55%, 60% favorite for Romania. On table 4, and this is the table that we're going to watch because it is by far the most interesting one. Glovier, that's Guillermo Neves, the winner of the 2023 Mind Sports Olympiad. And at the moment, I think either the strongest player in Portugal or tied with João Margarido. That would be my assessment. Maybe a triple tie with Afonso Cavaco, but Afonso is not on the team. Yeah, so Guillermo will be playing against none other than the 2019 world champion and 2022 Mind Sports Olympiad Grand Prix gold medalist Marian Kurkan, absolute legend of the game, really, and this should be an absolutely fun encounter, even though Glovier is rated higher at the moment, and they might even be, and actually they seem to be in really good shape. I would bet on a 55% favorite for Marian, just because of that experience and grit and everything, which the Portuguese youngster may already have, or maybe not, we'll see. And on table 5, Vitorino against Tabato. Here again, the Romanian player is a bit higher rated, so we should expect for Romania to be like 65% favorites in this match, something like this, but I doubt that they'll manage to win this 5-0, and who knows, maybe Portugal is going to strike today. So let's update and jump into the games. Glovier playing the yellow meeples. Placing one on a city, obviously. Marian places a black meeple? What? Oh, yeah. I'm using the extension for this one. Let me try and see what we can do. Let's make them yellow and red. All right, perfect. So basically this extension is going to count points for us, just to make it easier for us to follow a little bit. Also, your feedback is most welcome, whether you prefer to watch this with the extra info, with the extra point info from the extension, or without. In any case, this is what we're doing today. And Glovier already finishes. Okay, now I'm getting confused. Why is Mars yellow? Actually, am I even getting this right? Let's try pick different colors, and then we're going to get into the game a little bit later. First, Monastery, probably for Glovier. No, Glovier is red, Marian is yellow. Let's just go with this. Okay, so both monasteries have been drawn. At least both sides have drawn a monastery. Glovier, of course, has the advantage due to his 6 points on the scoreboard. Marian has an unfinished 8-point city at the top, a 3-point road to nicely protected. Not many options for Glovier in this turn, probably looking to build up his monastery a little bit. This is really the only move that I see that gives him enough value. Now, he might be reluctant to do that because he might think that Marian's going to go here with a curve because this here guy is trying to fight for this here road, right? But I would say that this road really doesn't matter that much. It's not long enough to be worth the hassle. In the meantime, Marian retakes the lead on the scoreboard, finishing an 8-point city off his own. Glovier successfully connects to the road. Now the road is a 2 versus 1 meeple majority. Let's see if Marian chooses to reconquer it. I don't think he's gonna. Again, the road is simply not long enough. It's also an interesting move now from the Romanian player. Taking 2 points in a way that obstructs the city of Red, instead of taking 2 points over here, obstructing the road of Red, and restricting Red's field a little bit. But I think the reason why Marian chose this move is because of the backdoor option of building a road like this, and the Portuguese phenom sees through it and takes care of the side of this road, now being ahead. At least 10 points when it comes to the overall point count. The thing is, with the overall point count, don't look at this too much, because it also involves the field, and obviously Glovier is the first one to have meepled the field, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be the case forever. For example, when Marian finishes his city on the left, it will be quite easy for him to drop a farm, or maybe right there, right now, and equalize. Hi Ian, hi Ivan, saying I don't like the overall score because it doesn't seem to add up. It does add up, I think, in this particular instance. There was some issue before, but I know that Spitke, the creator of this script, did some debugging after the first streams that I ever introduced. And I've been trying this out for a couple of days with no issues necessarily. But let's see. If it starts acting out, we can always turn that off. So Marian starts a monastery in a very interesting place. And honestly, I think we might be witnessing our first imprecision of the game. Not a huge fan of this move because of the self-restricting nature of this construction. You see, there are 4 straight lines that fit into this square, which seems to be a decent number of tiles. The issue is that Glovier is going to try and block this. Now he gets 1 of the straight lines, so now there are only 3 remaining. And then with any city tile, he's looking to just inflict some damage over here. Marian does his best, scores some points, obstruct Glovier's city, and Glovier now gets a city cap and blocks 2 meeples of Marian. This is a huge strategic gain. 2 lost meeples this early in the game for really not a lot of points is something that is going to be quite difficult to deal with. But you know what? Marian strikes back, so this move on the left is really sneaky. It does so many things. First of all, starting a new city on the left. Second, putting pressure against this square of your opponent's city. Third, putting pressure against this square of your opponent's monastery. Fourth, restricting the field, taking away 2 green squares. And just with 1 more straight line over here, it is possible to inbox that field pretty much completely. So Glovier just takes quick points at the bottom. Marian got himself a straight line to liberate this here meeple, but a little bit too late. Yeah, and the issue with that monastery, it was not because of the danger over here, although that was part of it. It was also because the danger over here, it was way too easy for Glovier to do something like this, for example, with a curve, and then try to put pressure against this square as well. This traditional move for Marian would have been to simply go here, equalize the 2 monasteries, and live to see another day. But this here development makes the game to be more interesting, because normally Marian places an open kind of Carcassonne. He's typically the first one to be on the fields and keeps things relatively open. Here, he doesn't have an option anymore because he has 2 meeples trapped. But for these two meeples, he does have quite a lot of compensation. For example, he has 7 points in this monastery versus 1 point city mini battle here. He has 3 for this road and 6? Well, eventually 8 for these monasteries. So that's 7? That's actually 18 points for 2 trap meeples. And it is the same as building a farm with 6 cities with 2 meeples. So he also successfully trapped a meeple of Glovier right now. There is no tile left into the square at all. All of the 3 horse tiles have in fact been drawn. Glovier, though, is not too worried about this. His city is already scoring 8 points over here. It could score even more with a Dorito tile or a triple city tile. And in the meantime, he's also putting additional pressure on Marian's road, and now a block or a restriction is going to come. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 3 crossroads still remaining. And if Glovier goes over here, it could be a bit of a wait for Marian to get his meeple back. So as the Portuguese player, I might be inclined to go over here and also meeple that road as well for 3 points, because we know that from Marian's perspective, he's short on meeples. He will be willing to place a crossroads here and give both of us, both yellow and red, a meeple back, in which we get 4 points compensation. Instead, Glovier goes a different approach. He tries to restrict this road in a different manner, leaving how many tiles? Well, I guess not too many tiles that fit there. At the very least, simple curves are not going to fit there anymore. Marian, though, gets a meeple back from another part of the board, finishes an 8-point city. Glovier with a compensation farmer early on for 6 points, probably 9 points soon enough. Simple curve for Glovier and a spectacular move. It's a really strong move by the Portuguese player. The intuitive move would be to place this curve over here, creating a spot, an easy way to complete the monastery. But he does something far, far better. First of all, he can still complete the monastery with one of the 2 remaining simple monastery tiles, and then instantly meeple a new 6-point monastery. And second, he's setting up a block of this here square, which is huge. It would keep this meeple here trapped at 1 point. It would make sure that this monastery meeple doesn't see the lights of day, and this is exactly what we're going to see right now. And to rub it in, this also means that Glovier will be capable of building a rather sizable ruin on this part of the board, whilst Marian is trapped with 1 point over here. An enviable position for the Romanian, yet he's still ahead because of this magic splitter tile that allowed him to finish a 6-point city and get a meeple back. Glovier, with a city cap, now needs to make a decision. Is it worth it to finish the monastery with it right now and just get a meeple back? My instinct is to be yes. And we know that, of course, it would be wonderful to wait for a monastery tile over here, but with only 2 of them remaining, it could be a while. And if we draw the monastery later, we can still use the monastery elsewhere. Of course, other spots on the board are not as good at this 6-pointer, but really, the other spots are good enough. Also, what we get to do, we get to drop a city cap in the empty field. If we're first to grab the city cap, that's already another 7-point move, 4 for the city, 3 for the field, so that's nice. But the reason why Guillermo is not placing the tile there is because they are viable alternatives. For example, he could just drop the city cap in his other field and wait, and he could also go much more greedy. He could go here and start an 8-point city, or at least threaten an 8-point city, but that would require investing his last meeple, not something that Guillermo is keen on doing. That's why he simply finishes the monastery, drops a city cap in his field, solid move, keeping 2 meeples in hand, looking to cash in on his city cap threats. And at the moment, Mars is 5 points ahead. If we trust the point counter, which I do right now, the score is 63-60, so Marian is 3 points ahead, which would mean that it's a good position for Glovier, not Marian. Because despite the lead of the Romanian player and the fact that he has tempo, which he can use to maybe start this 4-point road. That's actually not such a bad move at all. I would be inclined to do just that. With 2 T crossroads still remaining to finish that road. But basically, still a very good position for Glovier, because Glovier has all the threats. Threat number 1, this city cap over here, he's threatening a 7-point move with no investment of a meeple. City cap number 2, threatening another 7-pointer with no investment of a meeple, and this is why Mars chose not to meeple a new road, but instead restrict the city cap, and this works just like a charm because Glovier is now not able to meeple either of these city caps. Instead, he's going to be forced to do something else, either just drop another city cap in the field, or maybe just go for this city for once and try and gamble up a little bit, because 8 points are super enticing. But I haven't even finished with the threats. It's still a good position for Glovier because he also has scoring mechanisms, which are these 2 cities which could further develop. The only live scoring mechanism that Mars still has is really just this one monastery square. He could get a curve and get 1 point over here. That's it. For any other future scoring, Marian would need to spend meeples, whereas Glovier has several moves available to him that do not require the investment of a meeple. Hi Helga. Hi Nalaheim, saying big yikes for the monastery placement for Marian. He seems too overvalued to small early field. Yeah, it is possible. And it's also interesting in for a player like Marian, who tends to be the one to meeple the field first, I wonder how he feels and how he reacts to those rare instances like today when his opponent is the one to meeple the field first. I do think that the suboptimal placement of the monastery did in fact stem from that desire to control the field. Because you know what? The point of this monastery here, he was actually trying to finish this city and drop a farmer and use his monastery as an invasion platform, so I assume that was the idea there. Marian keeps blocking city caps in Glovier's field. Glovier started another field, which is a very interesting move. I'm not a huge fan of this, and this results in Marian picking up the empty city cap with one of his newly recovered meeples. Well, let's see how this works for Glovier. Because now with one simple city cap, Marian should really be doing fantastic now. He can finish the city. He also needs to decide whether it's worth starting a new one or whether he needs to even drop a little farmer there. But no doubt that this tile is going here. And he goes for a new city cap, pretty much figuring that there's a substantial number of city caps remaining that it's worth occupying. But here's the setup of Glovier and the reason for his second farmer early on. A 10-point move, 4 points for the city, 3 points for this farmer, and 3 points for this farmer. So tough for Marian, especially since Glovier also recently took advantage of some quick points. By the way, case in point, the scoring mechanism over here just keeps adding his stuff to his ruin. Also this, Glovier now got a city cap, scoring 2 extra points. Marian really needs a city cap to get a meeple back, and he has himself exactly that. Is this time to drop a farmer there, perhaps? Maybe? Ideally, what we want to do is Marian. We do have a path to win, but there might be not enough tiles to accomplish this. So we're going to go here and drop a farmer. That's a 6-point move, puts us at -7. If we only get something like this, maybe a straight line plus a curve if they are existent still in the deck, we would try and unify the 2 farmers of our opponent, making sure that these cities are not scored twice. At the moment, these guys are scoring 18 points, which is way too much. At least if the fields are unified, they're going to score only 12. Glovier with a monastery doesn't take a 5-pointer. Doesn't meeple anything, and he makes his decision pretty quickly, which doesn't seem like good time management to me. With 6 minutes on the clock, you really want to solve this endgame. Glovier's position is good, but he could still lose it. For example, one way that I see is that, well, Marian could just go here and meeple this monastery, right? So that's 5 points. Then we go here, we unify the fields. These are 10 points extra, 9 points because we negate the field on the left, and 1 extra for the monastery. And that would put him already +2. But then if he does that, then Glovier can take this 6-point field with virtually any tile, and then he's going to be up 4. And for Marian, it could be not that easy to get a 4-point feature. Well, actually, he might meeple something over here from this city. Oh, and also it's a bad tile for Glovier. He can't even meeple the 6-point field. He probably has to go for the ruin here? Yeah, I'm not sure. So he just gives himself a city point. Marian now needs to solve this endgame. So if he goes over here, he does make the 10-point move, which is going to put him ahead 1 point if we believe the counter, right? But then he's leaving a city cap in his opponent's field, so he's going to need to make sure that there are no city caps remaining. And also Glovier is going to have 2 tiles to play, and Marian has only 1 tile to play after this. So the Romanian could still lose. So an alternative idea that I have here is that maybe we go for the 6-point field first, and then try to draw something else to connect the field on our move later. But for this, the Romanian has 4 minutes to calculate out all the tiles, and I'm too lazy. I'm just going to announce that the remaining tiles are straight line and 2 curves, which is why Marian makes the No, man! No! No! No, 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 no! Really? Isn't that like... Wait, is that a mistake? No, that's not a mistake, I guess. Because my first instinct was to just meeple the 6-point field, right? But then wait a minute. So Marian got himself the 4 points. Now he gets himself the 10 points. But Glovier gets the 9-point field here. And Glovier is going to win. Yeah, I think this is where we see the counter mess up a little bit, no? Hi, Elena. Hi, Juliano. Wait, I think we need to dive in deeper into this endgame. And you know what? I'm actually just turning the counter off. Because I think it's... Why are they like at 91 and 88 for so long? Well, let's see. Maybe it is correct after all. Yeah, 90. Okay, so the counter is fine. So 91, 88, and 3-point win for the Portuguese player, which makes me think that actually Marian blew this endgame, if I'm not mistaken. I really think that this is the case. So here's what he needed to do instead. And with 3 minutes and 59 seconds on the clock, I mean, there's surely ways to figure that out. So from his perspective, with this city cap, the remaining tiles were curve, curve, straight line, which leaves us 2 out of 3 chance to go over here on our last move. And from Marian's perspective, what we needed to realize that unless we unify the fields, we lose, because the fields just score too much. So this means that if our last remaining tile is the straight line, then we just lose and we have to live with it. But then there's more. So if we decide that we go for the curve, that we try and unify the field on our last move, then on the penultimate move, even if you don't calculate deeply, instead of taking 4 points, take 6 points instead. So that's already 2 more for Marian, right? The reason, it's 2 more for Marian. Because he took 4 points, he should have taken 6. It's -1 for Marian because in the game he took 1 point for this curve by using the last meeple there. In the scenario that I'm describing where Marian drops a farmer here, he would not have this meeple anymore. So at least that will be a move which gives him 1 more point. But it's more than this. Glovier would not have been able to meeple his 9-pointer. Instead, Glovier would have gone over here, still with the same tile. Mars would have connected here. Glovier would have connected here. This field would have been 6 points worth. So Glovier would have had 3 points less. Because in the game, Glovier got 9. Without this city here, Glovier would have gotten 6 for this farmer instead of 9. So if we do the math, 1 point extra for Marian, -3 for Glovier. Marian wins this game with 1 point. Do correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. Oh, there's another way. Actually, Marian could have also, thank you KK Spam for suggesting, just taking this 4 points city would have worked just fine. So he had multiple winning moves there. Although the most precise one is going over here, because this here 4-pointer only wins by a tie. This here move actually wins by 1 point. So yeah, I'm very surprised to see Marian not solve an endgame. It makes all the difference in the world because he had an objective winning chance of 2 in 3 of 67%, and to turn 67% into 0, that's ouchie ouchie. So I'm not sure. Hopefully everything's okay with Marian, outside of Carcassonne, because this would be, maybe his thoughts being somewhere else would be the only explanation for this. But Glovier is going to take this all the way to the bank and try and capitalize on his psychological advantage in the next game, which has already started. Juliano is asking, first time I see that floating point thing, is it a plugin or something? Yes. It was made by the Ukrainian player with the screen name Spitki. So you can go to their profile, SPITKI. There is a link. You can get yourself this browser extension. Only for use for analysis, of course, not to be used during competitions when you're playing. So the next game is quite eventful already. Marian is ahead in points in this one, both on the scoreboard and on the actual points, so it's looking pretty good for him. There is a big city fight going on, with the quadruple city tile still somewhere, I presume, in the deck. And not exactly sure who that tile would benefit. Probably that tile would benefit red a little bit more than it would benefit yellow. Also note that the... Okay, I think I need to change the colors now, because it's something... Nah. Yes, like this, right? Yeah, Glovier's yellow, Mars is red. Let's stick with that. Wasn't it the opposite last game? I don't know, but it just matters that the colors match. So what are we having here? Glovier with 2 monasteries, soon to be finished. Mars with 2 monasteries, soon to be finished, and 1 monastery in the center that has been just finished. This move here by Marian is extremely annoying to all of our Portuguese fans, because whilst there are still 3 tiles that fit here, if red manages to successfully go here and block this permanently, then he'll be blocking not 1, not 2, but 3 meeples of yellow. But that ain't gonna happen, as Marian got himself a very high prop blocking tile, and Glovier got himself the perfect redemption tile, not only covering up his square, leaving still 3 tiles that fit there, but also pre-finishing his 8-point road and even starting a 6-point city to rub it in. And just after this sequence, the evaluation of the position changes. I now probably slightly prefer yellow over red. However, a lot in this position is going to depend on the timing. If Glovier is going to get his dagger very, very late in the game, then the extra meeples that he gets might not be as impactful in the late stage of the game. And also, he's going to suffer for a long time playing with just 1 meeple. Really, the only thing that Glovier can do is quick points. So let's see how that works out for him. So for example, case in point, ideally what Glovier wants to do is something like this. Go and take that 6-point road, but he doesn't want to spend his last meeple. And as a result, Marian is able to snatch the 6-point road. That's a huge swing. Honestly, as Glovier, I'd be tempted to just take that road regardless, just because it's so long and it's so much hurt to give yourself to give your opponent these 6 points. So this is how temporary meeple advantage works. Even though this meeple here is not trapped, the fact that because of this here restriction, Guillermo is going to have to play without meeples basically for most of the game, or at least for a long time, is going to already hurt his scoring potential a lot, and in fact already did. Well, this is actually quite fortunate that Glovier got his dagger tile early on, and now it's still a game. He's going to get 9 points for the monastery, 4 points for the city, 8 points for the road, and even drop a 6-point farmer on a field with a lot of potential green squares, a 3rd city cap waiting to happen, so Marian will now need to counter. And very interesting decision here. Actually, I'm not sure if that's interesting. It's a perfectly normal move, simply adding a point to his side of the shared city, which now has become a ruin once one of the squares has in fact been blocked over here. And what red can do, if red gets the quadruple city tile, red actually doesn't have to connect the cities. He might be inclined to go over here instead. Although as red, I would probably still connect. In the meantime, red finished another monastery. Glovier is still scoring quick points, now trying to build a city in his field. Marian, with a curve, probably looking to do one of several things. Option 1, we make a normal scoring move, go for a 4-point loop with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 curves and 1 crossroads and some other curvy tiles remaining. It's relatively safe bet for completing this city. A move which I would prefer would be to actually go here and block both monasteries. There are several reasons for this. Because Marian still has the meeple advantage as a result of Glovier's early farm investment, it is in his interest to keep the meeple advantage as drastic as possible, to keep it 4 against 2 rather than 5 against 3. And the third reason why I would have liked that blocking move is because Glovier can still finish this monastery, whereas Mars's monastery is still questionable. In fact, if yellow were to draw a tile that goes over here, he could block the square permanently, given the fact that all 3 horse tiles have already gone out. And case in point, Glovier's not probably going to finish his monastery. This is what I would do at the moment. He might be inclined to do this, which is also a solid move. He wants to prevent his city from being broken. Mars, of course, is trying to break his city. Very straightforward stuff going on. Okay, we have several other comments. Let me just see if I can read the chat At the same time, Marian now decides that the city of Glovir is dangerous. Dangerous enough that it's worth attacking. And it's already a win for Glovir at that point. Now he doesn't need to worry about the safety of that meeple, now that the fate of this yellow guy and this red guy have now been shared. In the meantime, whilst the Portuguese youngster is going to think how to best utilize this tile, whether to score 3 points or maybe score 2 points and save his monastery. I mean, 3 points is probably the way to go, but which way do you orientate the city cap? The safe way, with the city cap as far as possible, or the adventurous way, trying to grow your field, leaving a city cap open in the field, as well as also pre-building a 3-point road? And the latter way seems to be more appealing because you're actually more likely to benefit from this 3-point road than your opponent. Marian already has a place on the board where he already needs the curve, so it is likely that Glovir will be the one who takes those points. 4 points for Marian in Glovir's field. This also makes the field pretty big. It exposes an attacking platform to that field as well. Soon Marian is going to go here and drop a farmer, and this is why this was a spatial move. So Guillermo is sacrificing points just to make sure that Marian does not have a spot to easily invade the field. But overall, what we saw right now was a net positive exchange for yellow. Yellow dropped a city cap. Marian took 4 points for it. Yellow's going to get 3 points for the field in the event that he gets it, but he might not, as Marian chooses to attack the field regardless. But it's actually quite a dangerous spot to attack because we're running short on crossroads. In fact, there are no crossroads remaining, so that spot is very, 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 very much blockable. And what else? And there's actually not that many curves to begin with, and Marian already needs curves over here. And I think this is a bit of a mistake for several reasons. First of all, as Marian, like if you just count up the points, which is easy for us because we have the counter, but Marian is fully capable of quick counting. So if he were to go here and just finish the loop, he would get himself an extra meeple, he would get himself a couple of points for the road, and he would be just fine. Glovir is choosing to re-attack the field instead of going here and attempting a block. That's pretty interesting. That actually looks like a solid attack. That's a very solid attack with 5 straight lines remaining. I think that was a miss for Marian. Marian could have used the same spot. He had the same tile as Glovir. The Romanian must be kicking himself because now, if he didn't see that move now, he sees that move then because Glovir did this. And from a probability standpoint, it is just so much, this move is so much better. 5 straight lines that fit there, no crossroads to block. And in addition, 3 starting tiles, all 3 starting tiles still in the deck, which is a absolutely crazy distribution of tiles. So this move is almost guaranteed. There's 8 tiles in the deck that fit there. And of course, Glovir draws one of them, and he's going to reclaim the leadership in the field. And this might not look so bad for Marian, who now is going to score 4 points, but Marian is going to be at a net loss here. So the investment of this meeple and this meeple, that's sort of okay because they cancel each other out. But in the process, as red was invading, he was building up by accident yellow side of this here city, adding a whole 3 points to yellow's part of the city without guaranteeing that this guy is going to get a tile to share. In addition, this was a 2-point sacrifice from this here area, not finishing his road meeple, which might not even see the light of day at all because we're so short on curvy tiles. I see some additional comments. Nalaham is saying, not a fan of the rotation of the divider from Glovir. Referring to this here divider, restricting the city cap towards a tile which Glovier already needed elsewhere. Yeah, fair point. Although I think Glovier ended up getting both of those tiles anyway. Yeah, but that's a nice observation. I do understand why Glovier did this. There were some other spatial reasons, like that way sort of keep the field a little bit neater in terms of invasion platforms. Yeah, then I see comments on the fact that the newly discovered thing about board game arena animations, something that I can talk a little bit in the ending part of the stream. Speaking of the ending part of the stream, we're not going to finish with this match today. In fact, there's additional surprise Carcassonne content related to the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship 2025. You can try guess what that is, although those of you who are in the international Carcassonne groups, those you will know what that is. Yeah, but basically today's stream is going to be 3 hours instead of 1.5 hours, because there are more games to follow, or at least more Carcassonne stuff to follow. Of course, still a lot still to be played in this match. Both players are now going to draw a lot of straight lines and struggle how to use these straight lines productively. Marian is 3 points behind overall despite being 10 points ahead on the scoreboard. He needs to either find a route into the field, but really an easier way to win this game is just finish this road, get the 2 extra points, and get a meeple back. He just basically discards this tile. And Glovier with a huge draw. He gets the quadruple city tile. Of course, he doesn't unify the cities. He just adds to his own side another straight line from Marian. It's something that we're going to be saying a lot. And he chooses to just discard for now. Although from Marian's perspective, it isn't crazy to start thinking of Hail Marys. He's 5 points behind. He's now 9 points behind, which in this stage of the game, it is pretty annoying number of points to be behind. He's now going to score 4 points over here at the very least. So he's only 5 points behind. There's still a curve for him to go over here and drop a farmer, actually. So that's something. But Glovier gets himself the Road Monastery. And with that, it's a huge draw. He gets 8 points for it. And if Marian gets his road meeple back, which he will want to do at some point, then Glovier is going to get his monastery meeple back. And now I don't really think there's a path to victory. Well, there must be a slim one. Actually, I think there is a path to victory still. The idea for Marian is that we are ahead, no, we're behind 11 points, which means that if we get 12 points or more, we're going to win. What's a way to get 12 points or more? Well, we can get 18 points by winning this here field. And for that, we're going to need to connect this meeple, and we're going to need to connect another meeple, and there's actually a way to do that. The first move that comes into my mind is to go over here and drop a farmer and hope for the last remaining starting tile to unify the efforts of these two meeples, then hope that Glovier does not get a blocking tile, and then we also get to connect over here. I need to check the remaining tiles. Actually, let me just do this manually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 2 curves remaining, right? So then this means there's another approach. We can, in fact, go here, hope that our opponent keeps drawing straight lines, which I don't think are anymore in the deck, but at least there's a starting tile. And then we try to get one curve here and another curve here. Yes, it is only a 10% chance to draw 2 specific tiles out of a set of 5 tiles, but 10% is sure a lot more than 0. Elena is suggesting straight line at the bottom. Yeah, it does Oh, but the thing is like, okay, below the starting tile here, that works in theory, although that kind of looks blockable to me. But maybe it isn't. Hey, maybe that's actually better, because you know what? There are 2 Doritos available. But you see, the problem is, if we go here, it's actually very easily blockable, because our opponent is going to get either a Dorito and then block towards a monastery or vanilla city cap, which is no longer existent. Or they're going to get a curve and block is the same way. So in fact, all the remaining tiles, except the starting tiles, are blocking tiles. And that's not good for us. Also, okay, there's only 1 Dorito remaining, right? So we have 2 curves, starting tile, regular Dorito, and something else. Do we have daggers? Yeah, we have a dagger, actually. No, we don't. I'm missing something. Parallel city caps. So actually, the tile distribution is pretty good. Because if we do hope for our curves, if we do something like this, right? No, no, Marian. Throwing in the towel. Taking a 6-point field. The towel has been thrown. Starting tile goes to Mars. Mars is going to get 1 curve, but not the other. So we know that our idea would not have worked, but we also know that that idea was in fact viable. He decides to finish the road, which is not in fact correct, because Glovier is going to have himself a meeple to use, and he's going to use it to take a 5-point road or a 6-point field in the center. So losing some spread. GG saying Marian. And Guillermo is going to win this one quite convincingly. Not the best day for the legend of the game, but sometimes even world champions have bad days. Hopefully that makes every one of our viewers who play Carcassonne feel a little bit better about their own mistakes and imprecisions. Yeah, it felt like there were plenty of ways to win this for Marian, and mainly just playing simpler and getting a road meeple back. But the final, really, the most definitive sequence of moves was this one and this one over here. How Guillermo simply showed his superior board vision tonight. Identical tiles, same options, except that Glovier found the field invasion that actually works much better than the one that Marian found. If Marian were to go here, then from Glovier's perspective, this already becomes a little bit more difficult. So with Glovier's Dorito, he would probably have to go here, but he goes there reluctantly because Marian now, with all the straight line that he drew, of course he immediately would go here, but then later he would go here and permanently block this meeple. And then really, Marian will probably win the game. So that's also interesting because in Carcassonne, obviously, a lot depends on what kind of tiles you get. But what happens if you get the exact same tile? And we saw that right now. So congratulations to Guillermo for this absolutely huge win. Commiserations to our Romanian fans who will be losing 1 match point. But let's see now what's happening at other tables. Whoa, I need extra lights. Okay, close enough. No, too bright. Yeah, maybe something like this. So, Portugal is currently ahead 2-0, as on table 2 we have a massive upset. Licino Ferreira against Bogdan Kurkan, so not the best day today for Carcassonne brothers. And Ricardo Araujo also won against another world champion. Yeah, so just world champions today are dropping like flies. First of all, Martin Mojžiš lost 2-0 to Rambo Pang. Yeah, so world champions just can't win a duel today. Can't win a single game. Yikes and sheesh and yikes. So Portugal will in fact be winning this match and improving their tournament standings and eliminating Romania in a rather painful way. Painful because Portugal doesn't even advance themselves. They're just dragging Romania down, and to only marginal benefit to themselves. We do still, however, have one duel on table 5. Vitorino versus Tabato. They're playing a decider for the tiebreakers in honor. So now let's enjoy the last few minutes of Team Romania and Team Portugal in this tournament. Okay, this one I'm gonna not use. Actually, no. For this one, I better turn on the extension. How do I do it? Okay, let's try this. Yeah, I'm not sure why it doesn't work sometimes. Whatevs. We're gonna just use our brains here, right? Use our brains. That's what we're here for. So at least this was looking good for Romania, as Tabato is ahead on the scoreboard and just finished another big move. Vitorino does have a black meeple on a 12-point ruin on the left, and some monasteries for both sides, largely inconsequential for the position. So it's all about that big field in the center, which seems under Red's control. So here Red should be cruising towards a victory, making the losses on the other tables more painful as a result. So when we had our cold shower as Team Latvia, losing 5-0 to Croatia in the opening night of the championships, we were kind of joking in the chat. I think it was Giannis who asked, okay, like, does anybody have a silver lining about this? And I said, oh yeah, I know. When the score is 2-3, then everybody feels like they're personally responsible for the team's loss. When the score is 0-5, nobody really feels that way because the team would have lost regardless. So I feel like maybe some negative emotions for the Romanians might occur today. But that's what this game is like. It's a brutal, brutal game. Losses are going to happen. Painful losses are going to happen. Misses are going to happen. Bad draws are going to happen. A lot of things that you might not like, but still gotta deal with them. So Vitorino is trying a desperate effort, going for the completion of a big city. At this point, this is exactly what they should be trying. They will be thwarted pretty easily, as Tabato has 4 minutes to calculate whether it's even worth to block that city, whether it's worth to invade that city. But rest assured, if there still are 2 city caps remaining in the deck, then the move of Tabato is going to be over here, restricting that city. And then further, depending on whether there are triangle tiles or Dorito tiles or the big city tiles in the deck, he will choose whether to place his meeple or not, and he chooses to place his meeple. So it's a very simple calculation. Of course, he's not going to ignore this here monstrosity. The main idea for Red here is that even if we don't connect, then we just make sure that this guy cannot finish the big city. And then we hope that Black cannot finish anything useful soon. So let's see how Vitorino chooses to play this. In the short term, the highest scoring move is to go over here That would be taking 1 point for the road and also eliminating the utility of this 1 point farmer over here, which will be joining the other 2 farmers of red. Well, actually, technically, the high scoring move would be to go here and merge this guy. No, this is better. This is better. But Tabaro gets the road monastery, which he is going to use to go over here and eat up this poor black-colored peasant and deny 12 points for this little farm for black, and also expand his own farm by 2 more castles. This is completely brutal. Tabaro even completes the connection to the ruin. Absolutely obscene stuff. So Vitorino at least gets something for them. They eliminate the 6-point field of Tabaro whilst adding a point to Tabaro's monastery, so a net 5-point move. Ain't gonna be enough. Well played, says Vitorino. We have to agree, at least based on the last few moves. A lot of precision for Tabaro. Now let's see how much his field is going to accomplish. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and 8, and 9, and 10 cities in the field for a whopping 30 points without any compensation for the Portuguese, hopefully soon to be expert. 31 points is the difference. Tabaro is going to win, so Portuguese are going to overcome their opponents with a 3 versus 2 advantage. We say goodbye to both of these teams. But right now, to congratulate the winning team on finishing the championship on a good note and improving their standings, all rise for the national anthem of Portugal. Congratulations for Team Portugal for finishing this tournament in style. Commiserations to all of our Romanian fans, and we wish them the better luck next year. Now, there's still a lot left in this stream. We're going to do some tournament table speculations, and then after that, we have our surprise content for the next couple of hours, which is the deep analysis of 2 World Team Carcassonne Online Championship games. Let's us first of all catch up with the chat, and then we're gonna do all the other things. So I see tournament table speculations. Yes, Romania will be in fact eliminated, and it's not so much about the tiebreaker, it's about the fact that they don't have as many wins as the other teams, because the best third places are still going to be at -1. So they're going to be, they're going to be at like 3 out of 4. or 4 out of 5 rather than 3 out of 5, which is what Romania gonna be. So they're gonna finish the tournament roughly in 18th, I think, something like this. Hi Rui Costa, hi Glovier. Congratulations on your duel as well. We saw both of these games. Very nicely spotted field invasion through a straight line at the bottom. Awesome board vision. Okay, now tournament table speculations. It's really not going to be that long. We're just going to wrap up what's going on in Group C. And this is here. So Portugal won. Portugal overtakes Mexico. Mexico is going to be in 5th because even though they lost to Thailand, they didn't lose to Thailand like that badly. And so they're going to be ahead of Lithuania just because of the tiebreaker. Mexico's tiebreaker is 10-15, if I'm not mistaken, which is just 2 tiebreaker points better than Mexico because they have 9 better than Lithuania, so they have 9 duels won, 16 duels lost. So Mexico's in 5th. Portugal is an undisputed 4th, the only team with exactly 2 wins in this group. That is going to put them in top 30 in the championships. Actually, even top 25, because out of the 4th places, they're going to be one of the better teams. So they're only going to be behind Greece and RCP, if I'm not mistaken, although they also might be behind Catalonia. That's pretty interesting, actually. That is pretty interesting. Anyway, so they're guaranteed to be in the top 28 at the very least. They're probably going to do a little bit better than that in any case. Romania, they will be in 3rd for a top 20 finish, and we say them thank you for their participation. So that's basically how it works. Thailand is in 2nd. Ukraine, predictably, in 1st place in Group C. The other groups are going to deal with them as they come. I am in a rather good mood today, and fingers crossed, the stream seems to be working just fine. We had some technical issues back in the day, but now it seems to be much, much better. So I will, in fact, be staying awake for Japan versus United States at 1 a.m. UTC. Yeah, they will decide who wins Group E, so that's a pretty big deal for them. And then after this, there's loads of matches tomorrow, so just tune in basically at any point in the day, and we're going to be covering a match. But now, the second part of the stream, we're going to do some game analysis from an early match, from the match of Belgium-Croatia. And the reason why we're going to do this game analysis is because there were a few moves which sparked a lot of debates, both in the participating teams and other members of the international community. So the game is between Belgium's Craft Giraffe and Croatia's Amasyunkula. This is how I pronounce their name. I could be very wrong. Okay, let's just go to the game history here. Yeah, to set you the scene for the game, so Croatia was playing to maintain 1st place in their group, and Belgium was playing for their chances to qualify for the playoffs, which they would have accomplished if Latvia were to lose against Tutejše, which we didn't. But they didn't know that at the time because that match was happening before. So we're going to start with this game, which is their game 1. We're going to do game 2 if we have enough time. This is the most important game that we're going to cover because it had several critical moves and a lot of discussion to general Carcassonne strategy. Wait, what am I doing? Okay. Game replay. And we're gonna view this game from Craft Giraffes. Yeah, I forgot that Crafty Raff uses this new design. Okay, fine. Why? Honestly, I don't understand. Why would anybody prefer this? Like, I know there are many players who do this. I can understand because this is the default setting. But you saw the tiles that we were covering right now. Very, very clear. Here, everything looks like a curve. Like, look at this. This is a straight line. Why is the straight line curvy? Why can't a straight line just be a straight line? Like, just a straight line. No, it has to be curved so that we can fuse it with a curve, and then we can fuse it with a crossroads, and then we tile count and make all kinds of mistakes, and then we'll lose the game. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. This is not what we intended to do. We're going to live with these tiles. Let me try and see if we can actually get ourselves the new extension here. It doesn't really work for game review, but let me try this again. Yeah, it doesn't really work for game review. So what I'm going to do, we're going to do this. The usual thing that I use in stream, the Spanish one. Shout out to Estronfio, who made this. And the points, well, either we won't count them, or we'll count them manually when they become relevant. Oh yeah, I forgot to remove... Wait, did I remove the piano cam? Yes, I did. All good. Actually, oh yeah, I think I can remove already the score from Portugal. Are we okay to remove the scoreboard? Everybody can look what a great job Portugal did for a few more seconds. All right, scoreboard removed. Right, let me just triple check what you're saying in the chat real quick, and then we're going to continue. Okay, hi Volodymyr, thank you for the kind words. After credit scene, exactly, Elias. Okay, Ismaze is saying, don't complain, install a script to get rid of these junk pieces. Let's talk after the stream. I think I might do just that. Glavir is saying, I simply never played with the older version. If you try it, you can never go back. Also, in some tournaments, the older version, like, if there are a lot of participants, they're typically going to have some old boxes from the 2010s. And then you might have the old version then. The tiles in the old one are not straight, but they're straighter. For example, in the curve, like, have a look at this. Let's just have a look at after Amasiunkula's first move. Actually, no. Just bear with me, okay? Let me just catch up with the chat. Straight lines. Yeah. I know. Anyway, like, this artwork is fine. It is beautiful. It is pretty. I'm gonna even say it is prettier than the original. Look at the village over here. It's like so densely populated and nice, but the tiles, the artwork was not designed for competitive play. It was designed for your regular living room Carcassonne, where you have loads of time to, you know, maybe you can, even if you're not sure what the tile is, you can just like grab it from the middle of the board and look at it closely with your eyes. So even that could work. You can't do that in a tournament. There isn't an explicit rule against this, but I feel like you're not allowed to just lift a tile of the board. That would surely count as an illegal move. Anyway, we are here looking at this from Crafty-Raff's perspective, who's playing green and is rated a lot of rating points, and is playing against Amasiunkula, who's playing red. And most of you who have watched this channel or have played against expert players will know what the default opening move is. Now, for most tiles, the most normal optimal move is pretty much obvious. You take a city cap, you add it to the city. You take a road tile, you add it to a road. But for a long time, with the road, all three possible options, which is going over here, meepling this road, going over here, meepling with this road, or even going over here and not meepling anything, were considered viable options. And in fact, I think even in the Catalan strategic guide, if I'm not mistaken, they list this as the preferable move for the opening curve, well, which is not true. For a variety of reasons, most of y'all, which we won't go into, most of y'all know that the standard move is here. And a couple of years ago, there was some variation amongst top players. Now I feel that everybody rated like 600 and above always does this, which is the move which has the best expected value against both tiles. But Amasyunkula now starts the game with this, and it's not like necessarily a mistake because it's just the first move and it's a completely viable opening, and it used to be a viable opening in theory. Now, what Rav has here is this crossroad tile. And it's already a rather interesting situation because normally when you study openings, you don't study these secondary moves. You kind of assume that your opponent is going to do the usual stuff, the optimal moves. So if Red were to go over here as Crafty Rav, we would go over here and meeple this crossroads, which would be the standard response, a move which at a 600 plus level, you just really play instantly. But now, there isn't really any point in doing this, well, because the road end of our opponent is not here. So since our opponent started a new road, our first instinct might be to go over here and invade the road. Oh, wait, I think I can actually click on this, yeah. So this could be our first instinct. And sometimes I used to play like this, but this move is really not that good because it gives Amasyunkula such an easy option to take a curve here and invade this road and have a 6-pointer. So then, this here placement doesn't appear to be much better. In fact, if we place it here, if we don't meeple anything, our opponent gets a long road over here. And if we do meeple something, our opponent gets a straight line, continues his road, and our 1-point meeple here gets silly. So this is this move. With this move over here, it has a lot of merit in the sense that it restricts the city cap. So that if Amasyunkula has a vanilla, for example, he cannot take 4 points. And also, it takes out the best monastery spot on the board, which would be the spot there controlling the city cap. And in addition to this, we gotta meeple something. And there's several moves here. For a long time, I would meeple, and many players in fact would meeple this 1-point road. The idea is that your meeple there gets blocked very rarely, but when it doesn't get blocked, it's going to take advantage from this road piece when inevitably or almost inevitably this here 4-point city gets completed either by green or by red. But I think a more precise way with the crossroads in this particular position is to actually meeple this here road end instead. Because then if you meeple this here road end, your road basically never gets blocked. And if either red or green takes the city cap, for example, with the majority of the tile that they could use to take this city cap, they will be in fact still giving us back a loop road, which we can accomplish with an easy curve like this. So basically meepling this here road end is pretty much a risk-free version of meepling this here road end, because eventually these here guys are going to connect. Moreover, typically what's going to happen, it is quite unlikely for either side to draw a city plus road tile within the first couple of moves, and so you're quite likely to get a curve to continue your loop, and then either loop in from the other end trying to prepare already an unblockable 4-point loop, preparing to grab the new city. Or if the tiles are such that you might want not to do that, then you can get a straight line and then proceed further and just simply block this square. So this here response is in one sense also a versatile response. It does have some downside. The downside is it does not play well against two kinds of tiles. The starting tile. So if you get this, your opponent gets the starting tile, then the loop is broken, and now but then even then you still have this backup option of making a loop over here. I guess the worst would be the horse tile, which would allow our opponent a new city, and in some cases, if we get a curve here, would lead to a losing mini battle for 2-point road against a who knows what, how big a city of our opponent. But the main point about this is that in the opening, there are no perfect moves. There are always going to be slightly negative scenarios in all options. So all what you got to pick is a move which has the largest number of positive scenarios and the lowest number of negative scenarios. And this here is a response that I have experimented a lot with some success. But regardless of how you choose this, like this move that Raf here played is perfectly reasonable. And for a long time, I would also do this myself. But then typically, I don't know what I was going to say. Yeah, but the whole idea about this is interesting because Amasiunkula places a slightly suboptimal move on his first move. He already puts his opponents, us, Craft Giraffe, in a position where we need to sort out a move which is theoretically less studied because it is a response to a suboptimal move. And this really reminds me a lot of elite level chess, how sometimes players, instead of studying the best engine lines, they sometimes make the second best move or even the third best move on purpose, simply knowing that it is likely that our opponent will not have studied this, and it might be difficult for them to figure out a real response, a better response on the board. So, oh, lots of comments. Why does my chat update automatically? Perfect. Icemay's great comparison. The new tile design is as if a chess set where people where the pieces have a different haircut. Hi, Mikhail. Larpat Tori is saying, I'm sad you can't buy the physical tiles with the old design. I'm pretty sure you can probably buy used ones for like 100 euros or something. Like if people were to find out how treasured these sort of tiles are for competitive Carcassonne, like the prices would go up just like this. Yes, the Croatian Gambit. This move here is going to be called the Croatian Gambit. Okay. Amasiunkula now takes a 2-point road at the top whilst also creating a vulnerability against our move. We do start a new road, which makes a lot of sense. And we also put a bit of a pressure on this here potential blocking platform. There are several scenarios how this might be handy. So this is in fact the best move found here by green. For example, on the next move, if both players exchange city tiles or monastery tiles, then we get to go here with the vanilla city cap, for example. And then if red gets a curve, they now can no longer place this curve with a vertical orientation, blocking our meeple. So this move is not only starting a new road, it is also preparing an indirect defense of our meeple, which is in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, and of course red immediately continues with the block, and now we are really in the critical position of the game already here. Yeah, this game is mostly about the opening, and So some of our viewers today have already participated in this discussion. I would just like to hear from you what you would do here, and most importantly, why. In case if you're not as high rated as some of the players in this championship, don't be shy. Very curious to hear your thoughts. So I want to wait for around 60 seconds or so and then chime in with what I think. Actually, you know what? I'm even going to, because my voice is getting a bit tired, I'm going to actually use this as a time to take a break for 2 full minutes. I'm going to get myself some hot beverages. Feel free to just type away with your thoughts here. Craft Giraffe is saying, I don't want to put the straight line horizontal at the bottom because I want to place a monastery there containing Red's Road. Yeah, that's actually a very neat idea. So this is also one of the reasons why this move is not as great as an opening move. So that's because it does not play well against monasteries. I mean, there are some other reasons as well. It's, but yeah, getting a monastery here for green is something that can greatly annoy red, controlling this road from both sides. It's just something that's quite difficult to deal with. Craft Chef is saying, after starting the road at the left, it's not only about creating a 6-point loop, but also hoping to restrict the crossroads on the left in the next move with a city cap. Oh yeah, so here are the possible moves in this situation. My first instinct says go over here. This is what I do in many positions. And the idea of this move is that it's very efficient, with another green meeple here, of course. And then we try to get 2 curves and build a 6-point road. You might want to ask why you want to place another meeple. Well, the reason is that we just simply don't want our opponent to claim this road. So we need to use the extra meeple to get the 6-pointer. In this particular position, there are other factors to consider. We might try a move like this, like this. Yeah, all these moves really don't accomplish that much. Starting another road in a different place doesn't really make sense. It doesn't accomplish anything else positionally, and in fact, it only makes things worse. So we could give back a monastery spot that controls 2 of our roads, which is really disastrous. So it's really between this, the simple 1-point move, or going over here and trying to be efficient with the curves. Now, the arguments for being efficient, well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being efficient. You're getting yourself these extra points. And there is also this here situation. How do I say this? So the meeple of green is in danger. And for any future move that we play in this game, the position of that meeple has to be considered. So we need to, whatever decision we make, we need to ask ourselves, how does this extra meeple in that perilous position impacting our decision in the first place? So if we look at it, it hasn't been trapped yet. But there's a relatively high chance that it is going to get trapped. I can't put a percentage on it quite. It's definitely below 50%. Even here, this meeple most often than not survives. But even if it does, it's probably going to stay there for a long time, if not forever. And the key thing here is that we might need to use a few tiles for defense. So if we are going to lose this meeple, we're going to be at an early meeple disadvantage. So it could be an argument for being to try be as efficiently as possible. So then if we get maximum efficiency, we build features which gives us meeple back. And then we can play a game where we are a meeple down, but we have compensation for that on the scoreboard. Well, the start isn't great because, we're 4 points down on the scoreboard, but that's beside the point. Another way to think about this would be the opposite. Since we already have one meeple in a perilous position, we're better off not necessarily make that meeple in... we want to have few meeples in a perilous position as possible, and we want to avoid going over here and try not to have your road blocked. But how to adequately assess, because these are arguments, and both of these are pretty good reasons. So you can either, your meeple is going to be trapped, therefore I want to be efficient, or my meeple is going to be trapped, therefore I want to be more careful with another meeples. And ideally both of these things are true, but how do you turn them into percentages, or at least something more actionable? Now, there's intuition, of course, and I said that my first instinct was to go here for the efficiency, but there are some other things in this position that makes it like a little bit less likely to work, tiny little bit less. I have two concerns. One is that the 3 crossroads have gone out, which makes it a little bit more likely that our meeple is going to be blocked, especially this quadruple crossroads over here is annoying. The pattern how our meeples at the top can get blocked is, let's say if we go here, we get for a loop, and then our opponent goes here and blocks it toward the crossroads. Because 3 of the crossroads have gone out, we might not get a crossroads for a long time, which should give our opponents enough time to go here and block 2 meeples towards 1 square. It doesn't happen often enough. In fact, it barely happens 10% of the time. That would be my estimate. But the impact of this is rather severe. So another way how we make this sort of assessment is we try and figure out not only what the risks are, but what the risks and reward are. Because if we go here, instead of just taking a road straight up, well, we do get 2 extra points really in comparison to what we have gotten. So that's a very nice efficiency. So we get ourselves a road end, which is valuable really around 2 points, maybe like 1.8 or something like this. And we get ourselves potentially 2 meeples back. So it is really a 2-point move better than the alternative. The alternative, of course, is continuing over here. But then in those negative scenarios, we do lose big time if we do get our meeples blocked. When it comes to the meeple at the bottom, the way how it should influence those, I think the key factor here is to realize that we will be wanting to protect that meeple. So we will be using some tiles for defense. And most of the tiles we're going to be using for defense are roads, well, curves, straight lines, but really mostly curves and especially crossroads. I'm going to give you several examples. First of all, scenario 1, our opponent goes here with a straight line. Then with a straight line or a curve, of course, we try and go here for direct defense. Scenario 2, our opponent gets something like a road Dorito and goes here, tries to block it with their city tile. Then with a curve or a crossroads, we have to go here for an indirect defense. So, and these curves and crossroads, it's something that we're going to need here to liberate our road meeples. Now, if we do liberate our road meeples, we do get those extra 2 points, or like 1.8 points or something. But then there are also other factors at play in addition to this. One thing that was pointed out by Vladimir Chendev, who was analyzing this, of course, a former semi-finalist of the Carcassonne Champions League, he mentioned that there could be some further tiles that we can draw that negate this drive for efficiency. For example, what if you draw on your next move not a curve, but another straight line? Then you kind of gotta either continue your road and then break this pattern, or then try to go for an 8-point loop again, or you have to use the straight line in a different spot, not for scoring, but for doing something else, in which case it defeats the purpose of being super efficient, because we're not efficient if we're later going to discard a tile. Yeah, so the idea here is that some follow-ups can be a bit hard. There's some also other examples, some tough tiles that can be trickier to use involve the horse, for example. So let's say if our opponent later takes out these road ends and goes for a loop here, which is completely possible, then if we get a horse, we have to either finish one of our 2 roads, disrupting the other one a little bit, or we have to go over here, which would be basically sacrificing this meeple. So there are a lot of factors here, and the verdict after thinking about this, even though my first instinct is actually to make this move, is to realizing that efficiency is not worth it in this particular instance because of these extra factors. Normally, I love this pattern with 2 roads. I've been, in fact, accused for overusing it, an accusation which I will not accept. It's a lovely pattern, but in these peculiarities of the position, with the closed nature of the boards and not many places to use alternative tiles productively, such as the straight line or the course, the dangerous position of our first meeple, and the fact that we'll be needing curvy tiles for defense, and most importantly, the fact that crossroads, namely the quadruple crossroads, have gone out, makes me think that this here is in fact superior move. So we do sacrifice a little bit of efficiency trying to play the long-term game, and then try to draw monasteries and stuff and score big time. So there's one more factor in addition, but let me just read the chat first. Yeah, so basically Craft point in the chat that going here is in fact not as risky as it seems. And this is where many expert players get this wrong. It's a lovely efficient pattern. It's just when it works, when it doesn't work, then the impact is really, really bad for us. But one thing that Crafty is pointing out, oh yeah, one very interesting pattern about this. If our opponent is going to use a curve to try and bend roads away from each other, which honestly from our opponent's perspective is not a bad thing to do, because if they were to get a curve on their next move, doing something like this as red is actually quite a fun thing to do, because it forces green to use road ends in both places. But then these road ends can also be handy, because instead of going for this 6-point loop, we can go for a 6-point loop like this and a 6-point loop like this. But actually, I think the decisive factor for convincing yourself that the simpler move is better is the fact that if we so choose, we can be efficient later. Because with the crossroads already here, there are plenty of scenarios how we get a curve, and something like a straight line or a crossroads, and we get to complete an 8-point loop regardless, and we get to take advantage of that road end which is lying on the board. And that way, yeah, that way we just keep our options a little bit more open. So let's see what happens in the game. As you may have assumed that there are going to be negative consequences for that move, and our opponent is trying to start blocking a little bit. And at this point, actually, as green, I probably prefer just going here and bailing out of the whole curve idea. Because it's not that it's become super dangerous or anything, but it is a very high scoring move. We get to finish our road. We get to start a 4-point monastery. We get to build another road next to it for support. Like, it looks something... Why can't I click? Well, yeah, so placing a monastery over here, it looks like something that's would be worth considering at the very least. Now, this move here by green is also quite solid, because it does control this road here quite painfully for the red guy, and it's also going to take advantage of this here square. And also there are some scenarios how we get to put something like a cow tile here, which would delay a tile being placed in this square, which would delay the moment when our meeple here gets put into immediate danger. So this here move is in fact an indirect defense of this here meeple as well. Now, Amasiunkula does get a straight line, and they quite understandably proceed and create the blocking platform. And this brings us to that moment that we're talking about, that we're gonna need to use curvy tiles for defense. If not for this here moment, the easily best move in this position would be to go here. Okay, now I'm actually genuinely concerned. Why can't I click properly? What am I doing wrong? As Crafty. Because I can only go to the next move. Okay, I'm going to draw instead of clicking. So this road tile, we go here. We finish a 3-point road. We start a city. Like, we start another road. So this would be taking advantage of 3 sides of this tile. It would be turning it into a 4-point tile. Wow. But we have our dangerous meeples. So endangered meeples. So what green does here is this here move, which looks good. I wonder now if I would have preferred to go here instead, regardless, just because it is, I mean, it is pretty good. It is really, really good. Yeah, and you know what? This move, wait a second. This move actually is not necessarily a perfect defense. And intuitively, this is the move that I would play too. Although now that I'm looking this game for the 3rd time, now it seems that just sacrificing this meeple and going for this here move may be the way to go. So this move does something interesting. It does take away a lot of blocking tiles. Basically any city tile, right? Any horse, any monastery, all kind of things like this. But it also takes away a lot of defense tiles. For example, it takes away 5 straight lines away from us. I still think it is a good move, but since we're spending here, you know, just with our most devoted viewers, and we have time to spend to dive into nitty-gritty, I actually want to calculate the probabilities for this one. So what we're going to do, we're going to go here to Ice Maze's wonderful tool, and I'm going to try and actually calculate how this here move changes the blocking chances. Yeah, and obviously you all feel free to use this tool as well. I use it for practice a lot, and the reason why it's so good is that sometimes probabilities can be counterintuitive. There were moments where I've been proving wrong, that I was like, my intuition was wrong by like 10% or something. So, so without this move, our opponent had how many tiles to block? 8 here. 4 here, that's 12. Let's say this, actually that doesn't count. This is not a good blocking tile. This doesn't count. So 12, 15. These guys, that's 17. 17, 19, 22, 27. Yeah, our opponent had 27 blocking tiles if we don't do anything about this square. It is rather a lot. How many saving tiles did we have if this tile is not here? Well, we have this, and for us, the Road Monastery does count because it would be productive to use it as a saving tile because we can also meeple the Road Monastery. Anyway, so 27 for blocking for red, right? We have 1, 9, these here guys also, so that is 11, 5 straight lines, 16, obviously the starting tile itself, that's 19, these here guys, that's 22. Oh, also I forgot to count them for Amasiunkula, so Amasiunkula is actually at 30. Anyway, we're at 22. Yeah, and that's about it. I guess later we have a chance to draw on a later tile. So 22 versus 30. And we're saying that we're going to draw one of the 22 tiles before our opponent gets one of the 30 tiles. So what are the odds of this? 59 tiles remaining. Oh, man. Okay, this is more complicated. Because which of the tiles are suitable for both? Actually, it's pretty simple. So 13 total, 22 in total for us. Out of those, this tile, is actually the only one that's suitable for both. Yeah. So this means 14 tiles for us, 22 for opponents, and 8 common tiles. Okay, 14 tiles for us, 22 tiles for opponents, and then 8 shared tiles. And then I feel like we should get something in the ballpark of 30%. Wait, what? Ah, but we're player B. We're player B. Because it is our opponent's turn. So we have to reverse it. What are the chances that our opponent blocks us successfully? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so 74% chance that our opponent blocks us successfully. It does indeed look pretty grim. So saving our meeple here does it seem to be worth it, but it's not a definitive save. So let's have a look at the situation, how it will be after this move. Now, after this move, our opponent has way fewer saving tiles, way fewer blocking tiles. They do, however, still have the curves, and interesting now, they also have the road monastery, because with the road end over here, it would be a productive use of a monastery because it would also give them additional 2 points. So I'm counting these in. They have 9. And then what else they have? They have this, really. So then they have 12 blocking tiles. How many defense tiles do we have? We do have the curve. Wait, so 12 blocking tiles. And this includes the 8 shared curves. We still have the 8 curves, and we still have this, and we still have the daggers. Okay, it does look a lot better. We have 13 tiles. So what are the chances that, so 13 for shared, right? So we have 9, no, 8 shared. We have 5. We have 5. Our opponent has 4. 8 shared. What is the chance that our opponent is going to successfully block us? So this is interesting. The chance that our opponent is going to be successfully block us is 54%, which is not what I expected at all. It's now, I expected that the blocking chance would be lower. And it's also an interesting counterintuitive thing, because even though the total number of tiles that fits into that square, basically the total number of tiles that are good for our opponent is fewer than the number of tiles that we need, because they have 12 and we have 13. Because it's still going to be their turn, and because 12 is such a large number to begin with, they're still more likely than not to get a blocking tile before we get a saving tile, which begs us the question, is this move even worth it? I mean, we do get a 25 percentage point, a 20 percentage point difference in meeple safety. But I wonder if these 20 percentage points is worth it, because with this move, like with this here tile, it appears to be just working wonders for our position. Because it just sorts everything out. And we get to use it as a very valuable tile. I mean, there are some other considerations in here, and I think the actual blocking chances for our opponent are a little bit lower, because in addition to things happening around this here square, what's going to happen is that somebody's going to take this city cap, and then this will allow us to place a tile over here for indirect defense. For example, we can even place a monastery here. That would be golden. And then we try to get a simple curve, and we try to get over here. But then there's so many factors at play that we can't be judging things on just probabilities, because there are also points involved. So at some point we're going to have a look at these numbers and then we're gonna make a decision, like an educated guess about intuition as to which of these moves wins the game more often. This seems like a solid move, but I would spend quite a lot of time considering the alternative move instead. Because there are some situations, for example, when we save the most vulnerable meeple, but we lose one of the meeples at the top, especially since we drew one more crossroads, which normally would be good for us to separate the roads. Yeah, so it is tricky. It is tricky. This move would be my first instinct. However, upon further analysis, I do like the alternative move as well. Oh, right. Thank you, Crafty Raf. We also we have the starting tiles themselves, of course. So here we have 8 instead of 5. Wow. I'm surprised by how little it changes the probability. So it only changes by 5 percentage points. But it does mean that after the move in the game, it is more likely than not that we're going to save the meeple. However, actually, this calculation only comes to meeple safety. We should also multiply everything by 88%. So the actual number is smaller. It's around it's around 43%. The number of times that we get the rate at which we get a meeple back, because there are many scenarios where we get the defense tile and then our opponent draws all 3 starting tiles that fit into this square. So this also makes this meeple like slightly less worth saving. But yeah, thank you for correcting me on that one. If we're gonna make the calculations, we have to make them correct. Also, did you see how much time we spent on the opening moves? The opening of the game is really a big deal, and that's why players like Martin Moises, spend half of their time on the opening instead of. But what I choose to do instead of spending time in the games, I spend my time off the game with tools like this. Typically with my teammates, with somebody else. It is a bit too boring to do it by myself, really. But I typically have somebody with me, and then we would make these calculations, or we just move tiles around and try to, figure out patterns for these moves. Or at least, if you're not going to dive into these numbers, at least know the strategic ideas. So first of all, here, like the concept of efficiency versus what happens in the worst case scenario, the concept of risk reward. And this here situation appears to be a risk impact, sorry. So this is like low risk but high impact. And a lot of variables that you need to weigh in. Anyway, we're going to continue. Now here, red actually doesn't make a good move. They do finish their road on one side. Well, I'm not sure if it's not a good move. Maybe that's all right. But the reason why I'm not a huge fan of this move, it's actually it helps our opponents to protect that city a little bit. So from Amasunkulu's perspective, what they should have done, it's a very, very not easy move to find. What I would have preferred for Amasunkulu is something like this. Just take 2 points and then try to point the road end in the general direction of this road so that we can use it to finish our road if we have to. And then just leave this alone. Because if we leave this here square alone, then green cannot draw something like a straight line. And the straight line here would completely protect this meeple, or very, very close to completely protect this meeple, because it would restrict this square to a curve, and a curve is a saving tile for this here square. So what I would do as red here, I would first of all take the city cap, or if our opponent takes the city cap, then I go here in order to not allow the indirect defense. One concern that red must have had is the fact that we're running short on road ends, and they might be keen on adding a road end to their own road. However, one thing that I think they didn't consider is the fact that if they were to successfully block Green's meeple, they don't always need this road end, because they can just use this road end instead, and with a series of curves, snake in all the way in towards this road and trap this meeple. Yeah, so Craftraff is saying I was counting on him to take the city cap next turn and I could block the blocking square. On one hand, that works well. On the other hand, we are sacrificing points. We're sacrificing a lot of points and potentially meeples, because we're not sorting out the stuff at the top. So we're not taking 4 points ourselves. We're taking 2 instead of 4. We're giving away a 2-point tile to our opponent, perhaps. So these are a lot of sacrifices to protect that meeple. It might be worth it, and I do like the move, at least how it looks. Maybe ideally with a tile this beautiful, I would just go here. On the other hand, there are still curves remaining, and there's still 8 curves remaining, and it should be so easy to complete our loop. But then, even if we go for a loop like this, a crossroad still would separate all the roads in half and just make sure that we score more points. Instead of scoring 6, we get to score 3 plus 4, so we get to score 7. In any case, now this is the final, well, I guess one of the 2 more critical moves that we're going to look at in this game. Green is going to get this city, and Green did indeed find by far the best move in this game. So I'm going to give you all 30 seconds if you want to type this out. There is one star move that just stands out. And whilst those of you who want to type it out, I'm going to give you a hint. This move is, in fact, first of all, not taking the city cap, even though taking the city cap is not such a bad idea. I mean, it is a very efficient way to... It's not necessarily an efficient way, but it's a decent way to do things. You know, empty city cap, we take it. It's pretty simple. But then there would be some other problems. So if we were to take this city cap, our opponent can get a Dorito or a big tile and do this. And there's still a lot of those in the deck remaining. And then already we have ourselves a problem. We have a Sophie's Choice block over here because we need the starting tiles in 2 places. Then later, we actually have this road meeple frozen because if we are continue this road, this will expose a blocking platform against the square, not something that we want to afford. So then this city cap is actually poisoned. It would also restrict this square, not something that we want, because ideally we want something like just a straight line still fits, but I don't know, we want to... Actually, no, restricting the square here is not that bad. With it would be bad if it were a field Dorito. With a road Dorito, it's not that bad. Alrighty. Then an alternative move. An alternative move is going over here, and this was suggested in some chats as well. This would be just a very inefficient way of doing things, using a city tile to sort out our road. We would be getting 2 meeples back soon enough, but there's something stronger in this position, and ideally, we do not want to be using special tiles for simple tile purposes. So we need 2 normal curves there. There are 8 curves remaining, just wait for the curves. The curve plus city tiles go somewhere else. Alrighty. And Glovier found the move in the chat. So this is the reason why Glovier won his duel earlier today. The move is to go here and to meeple the city. That's an absolutely clutch find. To a naked eye, it looks ugly because it looks like the city is blocked, but in fact it isn't. It is protected towards one of the 3 remaining daggers. So 88% chance. And now here, if a dagger is drawn, then this square is protected toward the starting tile. So actually we have a 70-something% chance to finish these here 2 squares. It's just completely unblockable, and then we're going to get so much extra for that. If only we can get one more Dorito to cover that up, then we're going to have an unblockable setup for an 18-point city, or even 10 with a shield, a 4-point city over here, and a 4-point road over here. So this is 16 points with just 3 tiles. We're doing very, very well. Yeah, and an important point here, it is imperative that we meeple this city, because if we don't, our opponent gets a Dorito, and then they meeple the city themselves, and we've just lost. We've failed to score 8 points, and we've lost 8 points to our opponent. 16-point swing. Yikes and sheesh. Sheesh and yikes. Very bad position for green. Yeah, so the star move, the only correct one here, not an easy fight at all. And Amasyunkula with a great move of his own, actually. That is, like, this is also not an easy find, especially at his rating. Like, credit here goes for red, because 3 points, that of course is natural, but then the counterintuitive way of leaving the city cap in the open and leaving this here road in the open. The reasoning here is that both the city cap and the road are good for red rather than green. If green gets a curve, then green can either take 3 points over here and then sacrifice some percentage points in terms of the safety of his top maples, leaving them unattended, or green goes here, leaving back the 3 points road for red. With the city cap, it's not that simple. With a regular city cap, of course, Crafty is going to go here, but with the Dorito tile, Crafty is going to go here, in which case red is going to go here with the Dorito tile. So that's a slight subtle difference there. But still, I think a very nice find here from the Croatian. We do get to pick up those quick points. They start a new city, and that is an imprecision at the very least. It does look like it's obstructing the monastery. Not really obstructing, it's kind of helping, creating another monastery spot. Ideally, you want to wait, you want to get something like a straight line over here. But I've made moves like this quite often, you know, moves which seem restrictive, but in fact helping your opponent. So, unless we are in a situation where both road monasteries have already gone out, here we have only one road monastery gone out. Yeah. There we go. Then we don't want to create more monastery-shaped holes next to our opponent, because then they're unblockable. There's just no good ways of dealing with them. And we're going to see this come into play a little bit later. Well, Amasyunkula does get a monastery of his own, and he's kind of forced to equalize. Crafty in that spot. And now, the abuse is starting. We're getting blocked a little bit. I think we shouldn't be too worried about this, because there's still plenty of horses, there's still plenty of road Doritos, although we do need the road Dorito in another spot. Now, not the easiest move for ourselves. We could go over here, but we're kind of forced to use a meeple here and equalizing the city of red. It is a rather annoying move, and now a great move from Amasyunkula, adding a point to us, and all but blocking one of our meeples. And in fact, at this point, we really should kiss one of the meeples goodbye. But we shouldn't be too worried about this, because our setup over here is how we're planning to win the game. Against remember, 17 points. 17 points are happening here with 2 meeples back. And then if this here gets blocked, then we're going to get such a good advantage on the scoreboard that it is going to be more than enough worth the hassle for that meeple there. So again, we got to consider the position holistically here. And at this point, it's not the craziest decision to even just finish this road. But we do have probably some better moves available to us with this particular tile, and this is taking 2 points at the bottom. It's indeed an absolutely lovely move. It adds 1 extra point to the monastery, it takes 2 points for the road. It continues building up our side of the city. Even though red is going to connect, we can still theoretically block that square. We're also putting pressure on this here road meeple a little bit. One issue with that move that I see is that it helps red's side of the monastery as well. So if red were to get a Dorito tile, which they're going to use to connect, they're going to get a meeple back, whereas we are not going to necessarily get a meeple back from this monastery because we're trying to control this road. And so in that sense, keeping the square empty actually might have been the better way to go about things, simply because we don't want to give our meeples back to our opponent. Ideally, we want to keep this square empty and this square empty, so we get to use our 2 meeples to control 3 meeples of our opponent, and we get some sort of winning mini battle. We're up 1 meeple here, we're down 1 meeple here, and it all evens out. The problem, though, in leaving this square empty is that it would be quite easy for red to continue his road, because at the very least now we have some sort of blocking platform against this guy, or we get to continue our city with a Dorito or something like this. So this move definitely makes a lot of sense. Some alternative included going here, kind of pre-building ruin for the event we draw another starting tile, but really the odds of drawing 2 starting tiles out of 3 are 50%, which is not that high. It's higher than what people think intuitively, but it's still not that high. So I really would just strategize the game, assuming that the meeple from our northmost row is going to get trapped. Now, Ice Maze is making a great point. If you don't kiss the road meeple goodbye, this one, then this here meeple is also kind of trapped, because what you're trying to do, you're trying to draw a starting tile, but then you can't go here because you accept this meeple getting blocked. So the thing is, like, even though you're not kissing this meeple goodbye, we are already deep enough into the game that we have, how to say, outlines of the position, and you can even think of your win conditions. Like, overall, you're ahead here by 10 points. Your opponent has a massive meeple advantage, but you're going to get 3 meeples back. Let's say 1 from here. So let's say you're going to get 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here. Then you kind of don't really need this, because you're going to almost equalize your opponent on meeples, and you're going to have way, way more points than your opponent, that your extra meeple is not going to hurt. But if you wait too hard for this here tile, for which, again, there's only a 50% chance, because you need to draw 2 out of 3. The first starting tile, of course, goes here into that square. If you're going to be waiting for that, then this meeple is stuck for a long time. We're running short on road ends, so it might not come back. And we are, yeah, I guess we're just losing, we're putting ourselves in a temporary meeple disadvantage, which, as we found ourselves from the game between Glovier and Marian earlier today. Where was that 6-point road? Was that Glovier, or was that the other one? Wait, where was the 6-point road? I think it was... Oh man, I should remember this. Okay, who out of you remembers where we had a 6-point road? Meepled with the crossroads. Abusing a long-term meeple advantage. I think that was Glovier versus Marian. Actually, no. That could have been an earlier match from today. Ay, 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 ay. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Although the move here does make a lot of sense. It really, really does make a lot of sense. And I guess the problem that I have with this is that we're running so short on road ends. There are only 3 of those remaining. There's the monastery and there are the 2 crossroads, and then that's it. I guess there's also another cow. Oh, I mean there are 2 horses. Yeah, in that sense, maybe it's not that bad, because we can keep that meeple for a little bit longer. And then ideally we want to finish it with a road end, which is like a road monastery maybe. Because then at the very least, like if we finish it with a city tile, then this here square is very easily blockable. But wait, that's actually not true. Oh, snap. Counterintuitive thing. So you know what? I mean, going here and just getting a meeple back is not that bad. Because if we don't get blocked, which we might not, then 3 out of the... Oh, okay, so wait. 2 remaining road ends. No, 3 remaining road ends. 3 out of the 5 remaining road ends are city plus road ends. And if we go here, we actually have some nice setups. For example, we can get ourselves another horse, meeple this ruin for a bajillion points, and then we can even hope to finish this road with another road end. So maybe finishing this road was an option. I do, however, like this move. I like what this does to this part here. But maybe that's a bit premature. Yeah, maybe just getting a meeple back was the move. And simply realizing that it is okay to kiss this meeple goodbye and just focus on the main part of the board, focus on these setups. I would be more inclined and would be much more confident about just getting the meeple back if the Dorito here would have already been filled. So in that sense, this square slightly concerns me because Amasyunkulu could either block or much more likely invade rather than block, in which case we're not going to get our full setup and it's like not that good. But yeah, this might be the way to go. And also, now that I see this, I see some other issues as well. I think your main concern about blocking this square potentially was the fact that Amasyunkulu can get a splitter, or at least one of the concerns. Amasyunkulu can get a splitter, save himself a 4-point city, but then also block you with a 3-point city with another meeple. But if that were to happen, there's still other city caps that you can use over here. And yeah, there's pretty much that. And also what this move does, it opens up a bigger city for a potential fight for which your opponent has meeples and you don't. So let's see how this turns out. Okay. So yeah, so they start this. Easy 3 points for us. Of course, they start the city fight. That's actually a pretty good move for them. They get a curve trying to continue their road, but also they save the city a little bit. And normally they... Yeah, anyway, so they continue their road, which is one option they can do. I would have preferred to use this move and start playing against this square if I were them, but we're looking at this game from Green's perspective, and they're also now threatening all kinds of nasty stuff around here. Fortunately for us, we cash on the first part of our setup. We get ourselves the starting tile. Now all we need to do is just get the dagger. They now successfully connect to the city, and now the city is a little bit teeny tiny dangerous, but we get to pre-complete our setup and we get to score 4 extra points. And also now the plugin started working? That is interesting. Anyway, so I'm going to assume that we get the accurate numbers. The first dagger goes for our opponent. They have a move. I'm wondering if they're going to see it. So the best move for them is to go here and start a new city, whilst also indirectly continuing their road towards this road end. And this move is also not that bad. This move is actually pretty decent. So they are starting a new city and they're toying with the idea of the third meeple around their city, although there's a way how it could turn south for them. And this. For example, if they connect, you can get a straight line, you can get a Dorito, you can block 3 of their meeples against just 2 meeples of yours. But I think it's the second best move. Yeah, it's definitely a decent move. And also there's some scenarios how they can just get a cow and finish a big city with a 3 versus 1 majority. They can afford to spend meeples. Yeah, so one downside of playing with a long-term meeple disadvantage, or even a temporary meeple disadvantage, is that you're forced to make moves like this. You genuinely cannot meeple a monastery here. And I see that you're saying, CraftGiraffe, a lot in the chat that I like that my opponents are spending tiles on blocking and losing points. But so far in the game, the blocking of Amasyonkola has actually been entirely reasonable. They didn't really sacrifice points on blocking. Every time they would create a blocking threat, they would either score or they were using a useless tile. So let's have a look. Here we have 2 useless tiles with which they can score. Building around this road meeple, all with crossroads, all with extra value. This here blocking move added more stuff to their own road, which they're now going to complete. This here blocking move was a quick point move, so they never actually lost points. The only moment where they lost points with this 1 point with a straight line, but then, I mean, look how annoying this is, because you just lose so much more value that this 1 point is going to get paid back, not even just as a block, but just as a delay. So yeah, so far from a blocking perspective, Red is playing this really, really well. And of course, Red is also drawing well as well, because they drew so many crossroads that allowed them to block without having to compromise on points, because they get to score and create those blocking platforms at the same time. And another thing with those points, like when you play those positions with a lot of blocked meeples but with the point advantage, those positions are very subtle because your meeples need to be in semi-dangerous places. Yes, so ideally you want a meeple in semi-dangerous places, because if you meeple in a genuinely dangerous place, then very often the point sacrifice that your opponent is making for blocking is actually worth it. It is actually positive expected value for them. If you're making it in a semi-dangerous place, then ideally what's going to happen, either your opponent's blocking efforts are not going to be enough, or they are going to be enough, but in that case, they really would need to spend a lot of tiles and a lot of moves in order to be blocking. And then you also typically need different features in different parts of the boards that are going to get blocked or not blocked at some point. And you also need to make sure that you yourself need different tiles in different moments. And the one position here that's not ideal is having to need those 2 starting tiles. So overall, from the blocking perspective, really actually flawless play from Red so far. Oops, static noise, we're gonna fix that. Okay. Commenting on this splitter move. Do let me know if the noise is gone. So Craft Giraffe is saying some did not like my splitter move. They preferred to finish this, to split the city at the bottom. This honestly is just madness. The reason why I did not address this move is because how obvious it is, at least to players at like, well, 600 plus level. So first of all, this square was dangerous. Now it wasn't. Second, we score 5 points. Third, we also pre-build ourselves a 9-point field. That's also something that's super important. When they get the dagger, we come with a 9-point field. It's a huge, huge setup. Unless, of course, our opponent pre-meeples that field, which they should. But if I go here, we can also pre-meeple it in advance and then invade. So it's a good thing to have that field. If we go over here and split our opponent's city, which is a move that I wouldn't even consider, well, then first of all, we're giving 4 points for our opponent, and then we're compromising the safety of this monastery. There's really, really no good reason to do so at all. And, like, think about this. We would sacrifice 9 points and the 9 points and, like, 1.6 meeples, something like this. 1.3 meeples, maybe. In order to do what exactly? To thwart the threat of a city which isn't even that dangerous yet. Yeah, that would be a massive, massive mistake. Generally, you don't use the splitter tile to split away your opponent's city unless your opponent is preparing to imminently complete that city. For example, let's say if your opponent if there already were a city cap here, and then something like a curve here, then yes. Then we use the splitter here because it eliminates the threat completely and they don't get to draw one of their 5 Doritos. But now then, if they connect here, we have so many things we could do. We could get a straight line and try and block the square toward the mini battle. We could even get a city cap and place our last meeple and try to connect over here. So, I mean, obviously, for our more advanced viewers, this would be like very, very obvious. But for everybody who's still learning, I mean, everybody's still learning, but for those in the earlier stages of their learning, just wanted to point that out. All right, see. Yeah, now comes the final critical position of the game. And to be honest, I don't really have an optimal solution here. And I would be tempted to make a move that you played in the game. I think I would talk myself out of it because it is not the best move. But I'm going to spend some 30 seconds for others. Like, do let me know what you would do with this Road Dorito tile. Very curious to hear. Oh, I see some nice ideas. Okay, I personally can think of... How much can I think of, actually? 1, 2, 3... 4 possible uses for the Dorito other than the one that was made in the game. But all of them have... Oh, 5 possible uses, actually. But all of them have drawbacks. But I want to go through all of them. I do want to hear a couple of suggestions first, because this one stumped me for a while. Right, I'm going to be starting going through the options in no particular order. Option 1, we don't do anything special with the Dorito tile. We're sort of kind of discard it. Just going over here, pre-meepling, not even sort of pre-building this ruin that we might meeple if we get a starting tile. This is not ideal because our opponent has more meeples. And then they might go over here and then just take the ruin for themselves. Option 2, we go here to free up our monastery meeple. Now it has some advantages in the sense that we're getting a meeple back. The disadvantage is that we're placing a shielded tile into a city that can be likely belong to our opponent, and there's still plenty of combos such as 5 triple city tiles and 7 Doritos, yikes and sheesh, that goes over here and completes a 26 point city for them. So that's certainly not ideal. Option 3, we try and play around these cities a little bit more. So we can consider this move with meeple or without, with different orientations. Same goes for this here square. Could try and play around their secondary meeple a little bit, putting some pressure. These are moves that I would consider. I wouldn't consider going here. In theory, this is interesting if this were something more useful, like a cow, more useless, like a cow tile. We could delay the retrieval of our opponent's meeple, and in that sense, that actually could work well. But the problem is, if we were to do this, they're going to draw a starting tile, and when they draw a starting tile, they're going to take advantage of that new piece and meeple that city. So we don't want to do that. Also, with only one T-shaped crossroads remaining, what we actually want to do is we want to go here and restrict the square towards a T-shaped crossroad. Now, what are some other suggestions? Yeah, Craftref is saying a key option. It is the fact that I didn't find this tile. It is the fact that I didn't find a good use for this tile that I made the move that I made in the game. Oh, but there was another options. I think actually I misunderstood the, wait, let me just scroll up a little bit in the messages. I would be considering like making a move like this one in particular. And this is to make it harder for my opponent to meeple this 9-point field in advance. I think this is something that you said, although that doesn't really necessarily work because my opponent is going to meeple this field from this side by completing the road. Or if push comes to shove, they're going to do this. Also, generally, on this board, when you need a starting tile in one place, although it's actually not even... You know what? If you get a starting tile, I don't think you actually want to do it there. I think we really don't care about that meeple. Because if I were to get a starting tile as green on this move, I would probably just go here and take the 4 quick points. Because here... Like, I'm just gonna get 2 meeples tangled again. I better save one, but save for sure. Which also brings me back to this move. I think the move was really here. We get ourselves 2 meeples in play. Well, we're gonna talk about this later. It's a very interesting consideration. But anyway, forget all that. I generally don't want to restrict anything on this board toward the starting tile because I already need a starting tile in a different place, which means that my opponent is more likely than me to benefit from that square. So for example, they could easily draw a starting tile, go here, start an 8-point city, and then we lose that meeple. Then we lose that 8 points. Oh, also another interesting point made by Raf, so about restricting this field. In my head, they made quite a lot of suboptimal moves at that point, so I thought they would never meeple the field in the middle before I finish this city. And spoiler alert, yes, they did. So that was actually a clutch find from Red using these pre-meepled cities. But it's a bit of more... So this sort of approach, kind of hoping for your opponent's mistake, this is typically something that you do when you're behind. You're not behind. You're ahead. You still have 2 daggers to complete your setup. Like, it's a good position for green. A great position would make it so that you have a meeple extra, but you know, we get what we get. So what could I consider here? Honestly, this here move with the meeple is not that bad. And the more I think about this position, the more I look about the shielded tile, the more I think about the fact that I have a dagger to get this meeple back, still a couple of rodents to get this meeple back. Still, if my opponent somehow completes the big city, then they're going to fill in the square and give me the monastery meeple back. Also, I have 3 cows, 3 horse cows. Cows are amazing. With the cow, we get to go here and we get to try some genuine blocking. So probably my move, after I look about this position deeply, is I either go here with a meeple and try to simply build a new city with one of the 8 Doritos, okay, 7 Doritos remaining, whilst also obstructing the connection. And the idea here, we go here and we make it seem that we try to invade. When we try to invade Jack, sorry, we go here. We do this and make a flower with all of the Doritos are available, or at least 2 city caps. So this is actually worth spending a meeple, absolutely. Now, what's not worth doing is, of course, the move played in the game, and you said this is probably your only real mistake in the game. The other move, there are other 2 moments which I would call imprecisions. And even those are completely reasonable. But this also goes to show the power of the temporary meeple advantage. Because you gotta ask yourself, would you have played this move if you were to have 2 meeples in hand instead of 1? I'm gonna give the answer to you. The answer is no. If you were to have 2 meeples in hand, it's a very easy decision to use one of the meeples to start a new city. Because generally, you don't put shielded tiles in your opponent's cities. In fact, you don't put nothing in your opponent's cities which are trying to get complete. Your goal is just to block everywhere. I know that your goal here now is to finish the monastery and get a meeple back and try to play against that city, but then the problem over here in this approach towards the game, so you're saying that your opponent is going to block you and lose points, but so far, all that I'm seeing is that green is losing points from not meepling a monastery because green is short on meeples, and green is losing points on trying to get a meeple back with shielded tiles, a lot of points, because green is short on meeples. So the temporary meeple majority is a real thing, and whilst green has green has 0 truly blocked meeples in this position, or maybe only 1 meeple which is likely to get blocked. Still, we're already making enough sacrifices in this position to justify our opponent's blocking. And also another way to talk yourself out of this move. So we get ourselves a monastery meeple back. But then what do we use that meeple for? Well, the number one thing that we use this meeple for is probably getting a city tile, going at the bottom and trying to fight for the city. But then if our goal was to get a meeple back, and then we reinvest this meeple again, except that we've added more points to our opponent's city, so then we're not really getting a meeple back, we're just reinvested them in a different area. But one thing I think that's very, very difficult here, and that's something that I've learned from Takafumi Mochizuki, from his games, and particularly from the Japanese Championship final of 2022, where he won against Satoru Kishino, is how powerful Dorito tiles can be for starting new cities, even in the middle of the game. Because you typically think of cities as city cap plus city cap, but with a large number of Doritos, it is perfectly fine to start a new city like this. It's perfectly fine. You either get 2 city caps or you get 3 Doritos, both viable pattern in this particular pool of tiles. So yeah, so I think this here was your move. Very, very not easy to pull that trigger on. You know, you don't want to spend your last meeple, but then you don't really need meeples for anything more in this position. Road ends you use to recover the road. Dagger you use over here. City tiles you use to build up over here. And if your opponent wants to threaten the city, at the very least they're forced to give your meeple back. So yeah, it took me quite a long time to realize this, actually, only once seeing the game 3 times. Oh, this is an interesting... Yeah, so Icemaze is saying, the problem with taking the city with your last meeple is getting the dagger and not being able to meeple the 9-point field. I wouldn't call it a big problem. So this would not be taking advantage of the full dagger, yes. But if we get the dagger early enough, then our position is awesome. Then we don't even need that 9-point field in order to have an advantage. Sure, our opponent can go there on their next move, and then we're just going to take this 9-point field, the main one. The sole reason why this move would be so good is because it's a tempo move. We get to use the dagger for like maximum capacity. But we also need to not forget that we're not guaranteed that field at all. It is possible that Amasunkula gets himself one of the 4 straight lines and pre-meeples this field in advance, and we might find ourselves in a position where we get the dagger but we can't meeple the field anyway, not because we don't have meeples, but because the field has already been meepled. So quick points more. Now we get a monastery, which again we use for not as a monastery, kind of try to run away. So you see, we create them the threat of the big city, and then we sacrifice further value trying to chase around. Although this move is the correct move. I mean, they now do this, and all of you, despite green's optimal moves, also very... Oh, okay, green meeple's a different farm, whatevs. It's still a good farm. To meeple, you're trying... Ooh! Actually, you know what? Is it crazy instead of this move for you to go here and try to tie their cities together? No, maybe that's a bit too crazy. The idea of this, of course, if red finishes the city, then we get immediate compensation and try to do this. You try and block, you get yourself a meeple back. They get more stuff, we try and block, and they get their city for a gajillion points, and they now have the advantage. We're 18 points down. Our position is still surprisingly playable, but strategically this should be lost. Like most players who are rated the same as you, they just play small ball, meeple a couple of 6-point fields, don't meeple anything big, and then just cruise towards a win as red here. So yeah, now of course it's quite easy to see that principle worked in action, but this move was made only because of the meeple shortage. Yeah, and I also see that now you're trying to, so it's a very interesting thing. I used to do this myself a lot, that I kind of put myself into a very difficult position, and then after some point in the game, I start to play like really well, like kind of just grinding with my teeth when it's sort of either too late or close to that. And my most recent example really is how I lost my duel against Ivax of Tutatia. Part of that duel was on stream, and I think, yeah, so my endgame was on stream, But that was already after I made some opening misses and put myself into a difficult position. So I can empathize with that sort of stuff a lot. It's very fun to play that way. Honestly, it's super fun to play these positions where you are behind but not quite out of reach. Yeah, but maybe it doesn't have to get there. So farm stuff. Honestly, yeah, meepling the ruin, meepling everything. Blocking our opponent's invasion towards a 50-50. That's actually very smart. Because now we're gambling, we're trying to get that final dagger there. They're making it harder for us to invade. What, are we going to get ourselves a second farm? I would assume so. Yeah, this looks like a good farm. It's fun in many ways. First of all, it's a farm which scores the most on the board. And there's also backdoor option of actually finishing your opponent's city and invading the main farm through here. So that's a lot of fun as well. And we just keep scoring, and somehow we're making this much, much closer. Three points, they do this, we just keep scoring points and scoring points. Now, red, of course, is going to make a couple of mistakes there, but yeah, for example, with this move as red, what they should have done, again, it's a pretty easy decision. Instead of playing over here, they should have placed the same tile over here, creating an unblockable 80% chance of completing their city with... Oh, it's not 80, it's only 50. No, 80% chance, yeah, with one of the remaining 2 field Doritos, whilst also restricting this city cap and not allowing to be used as an invasion, because now you get to score 4 points over here and block their city and continue your own field, and they would have gotten their Dorito to finish the city and put the game out of reach if they were to place it from the other side. So that's what I was talking about, that a player who is like 600 rated or above would convert this position for red pretty easily. So you're fighting back like really, really well. It's honestly super spectacular, and we're going to spend a bit of time on the endgame still. Yeah, so you block. Oh yeah, it's them. Yeah, so I think they're trying to... Oh, they're trying to invade your 12-point field. And what are you going to do? Are you going to score a little bit? Yeah, sure. That works. So now at this point, what are we having? At least the score counter tells that we are ahead 4 points somehow. I think I know how, because we somehow managed to develop a 15-point field on the left. And how exactly do we win here? Let's first of all try to think objectively what are winning chances here. So we are ahead 4 points. And there are several threats in this position. From red, the threat is to finish this city and get 5 points. It's not that big of a threat because we can easily counter it by making 3 points elsewhere, let's say over here. So we shouldn't be worried too much about it. Another threat that red has is going over here or over here and equalizing the field at the bottom. And this is something that we should be worried about because it's actually quite likely to happen. And I think we cannot prevent this. So if red gets straight line and / or monastery, then we'll be losing 9 points. Because they're going to unify their 16.6-point field with our 15-point field. So this will put us at -5. Is there an easy way for us to make 5 points? The answer is yes. We get to go over here And then with the last, and it's gonna put us at -2, and then with the last tile, we're still gonna have a meeple, and we're just gonna score something else. I don't know, a 3-point road or whatever, 4-point city over here. The problem is that in that sense, what the problem is then? The problem is that our opponents can do two things. They can both connect over here and finish their city. And this is going to give them 14 points, if not more, because if they finish the city first, then we finish this connection. Yeah, it's actually, and then they connect here. It's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Yeah, that is really interesting. Why is no? The connection is not 6 points. The connection is 9 points, right? We have a 15-point field. I don't think I'm hallucinating that one, because the big city is also touching our field as well. So this here field at the bottom. So my first instinct, I can tell you what my first instinct is, and we're gonna see if this is correct. Just knowing the tiles without pure calculation, my first instinct is to go here, and this is simply to give us more winning tiles, because option 1, we get a straight line to connect here, which is going to equalize our 3-point field with our opponent's 9-point field for a 6 points connection, plus we get 3 points here. So that's a setup to score 9 points. If we get the road monastery, we get to score even more. We get to score 16 points because we get to meeple this 16-point monastery as well. Now, let's see if this move actually plays out. Let's say if our opponent gets the road monastery here, they connect, and we are at -9. No, we're not at -9. They make a +9 move, we're at -5. If we connect over here, we get 9, putting us at +4, and then they finish the city here for 5 points, and they win by 1. So this here is not an acceptable scenario for us. So in that sense, this move will not work. What will work, however, is if they get a straight line, and then we get the monastery, and then they finish the city, then we would indeed win. Yeah, so if we do this, then the straight line is actually not a winning tile. However, I think that a splitter might be a winning tile, because let me think about this. Let's say if they get the road monastery here, then they connect, we're at -5. But that's another problem. Then we get the splitter, but the best we can score with the splitter is 4 points. And so we'll lose by 1 point in these scenarios. Oh, this is so miserable. So actually we don't win with the splitter either. If we make this move, the only way we win is with the road monastery. It is in fact an unblockable chance of a 30% win. Even if our opponent finishes this city first, and then they get a straight line and connect over here, they will be able to take these 2 points extra, giving them 11 for this move and 5 points for this move, for a total of 16. But we'll be getting 6 + 7, 13 points move from this move. So we will win by 1 point still. But it's only a 1 in 3 winning chance, so I wonder if we have anything better. Craftraff is saying also time trouble, yeah. Let's see what the options are. Ice Maze is saying, what if we take the 3 points for the run. It puts us at +7. Then let's see what our winning tiles are. Well, we do know for sure that the splitter wins us the game, because then this means that our opponent can score 9 points max by connecting to this field. They don't get to finish the city. And then all we need to do is score 3 points for anything. You know, straight line goes here. Road Monastery obviously goes anywhere. Yeah, a straight line goes here. Even better, actually. So then we win pretty easily. What else can we do? Yeah, it actually sounds like the move. So we win with a splitter. Do we win with a straight line? Let's say if they get the splitter first, they score 5. With a straight line, we score 9, because we also get to meeple the straight line. But then with the monastery, they score 5 for the monastery plus 9 for the invasion. They score 14. So then they score 19. And then we score 3 and 9. So we score 12. And in that's... Yeah, and then we lose by 3 points. So if we just add 3 points for the ruin, I think it's 50-50 for the game. Yeah, because the thing is, if they get the combination of the divider plus the road monastery, if they get the combination of divider plus the road monastery, then it depends on the order. Because if they get their meeple back first, they get to score 5 points for the monastery later. If not, if they get the monastery first, they only score 9 here, whereas we get to score 9 here as well. I'm also thinking of a different type. No, never mind. Yeah, so that's how it works, I think. So it's going to be a 50-50 scenario. So if we go here, we win in all instances where we get the city cap, and we win in half of the instances when we get the road monastery. And we win... No. We win in half the instances where they get the straight road, right? Okay, let me just think about this. If we win the city cap, then we'll lose. No, we don't. What I'm talking about. No, of course we don't lose. Wait, is this 5 and 6 win? Okay, we go here, we go up 7. If we get the city cap, then the maximum that they can score is 9 by connecting the field, in which case we easily win. In case we get a straight road, we win half of the time. We only lose if our opponent gets a city cap and then a road monastery. And if we win, and if we get the road monastery, yeah, this is the last scenario that we need to do. So we go up 7 points. If they get... If we get the road monastery, so they get this first, they score 5. And then with the monastery, we make our best move of going, I don't know, here for 6, for example. This is the only way. So we go 6 extra. And with the straight line, they score 11. So, oh yeah, this we covered this scenario. Well, actually, we covered a similar scenario. Because they get 16. Oh, no, well, then we lose, yeah. Because they get 16 points, duh. So it's a 50-50 for the game. No, it's not a 50-50. Because again, it depends on the... No, it doesn't depend on the order. Even if they don't, even if they first get the straight line and they don't get to meeple it, then they're still going to score 9 here and 5 here for completing the city. So that's 14. We're up 7 after this move. And then with the monastery, we're going to be up 13. So they're still going to win by 1 point. What an endgame. What an endgame. So in fact, this will be 50-50 for the game. Fascinating. Yeah, try calculate all that with a minute on your clock. So this appears to be the move. This, I think, wins only 1 in 3. Because that monastery setup is just not enough. Although... Nah, not really. Isn't really anything much that we can do. And also, if we're hoping for the road monastery, we can do even something crazy like going here. And trying to invade the field like this. Wait, does this work? If we just drop a 0-point farmer. Oh! Okay, hear me out. If we drop a 0-point farmer here, and if they get this, we're still ahead 4 points. And if they get this here tile, they're going to be ahead 1 point. In which case... Oh no, it still doesn't work. We still need the road monastery. Because if you go here and connect to this field, they use the road monastery and connect to this field. Yeah, doesn't work. Doesn't work. Yeah, so in fact, just the simple move of taking 3 points for the ruin appears to be the move that wins the game most often. Oh, it's 66%. Thank you, Ice Maze, for pointing something. This move, in the scenario when they get the splitter first, then we get the monastery to go here for 5 points and block their farming move. Tight. There we go. Yeah. 2 in 3 chance, but also a 2 in 3 of like very particular way. Because you know, when you calculate these endgame options with 3 tiles remaining, typically when it's 1 in 3 chance, it's like, okay, option A, I could draw this tile. Option B, I could draw this tile. Option C, I could draw this tile. But here it's complicated. So to recap again, we win in all instances when we get the splitter tile. And then again, we win in half of the instances when we get the road, and half of the instances when we get the monastery. And all for different reasons. So in fact, we still have 6 unique scenarios, or at least 5 unique scenarios, really 6 unique scenarios that we need to work through depending on the order of the tiles and determining the winning probability. Ain't easy at all. Okay. Wait. Who's screaming at the screen? Okay, time to read the chat. Oh, oh, the top field. Wait, which of the? Oh yeah, never mind. This was way ago. Okay, I read it. Yeah, that was an excellent suggestion. Okay. No, I'm gonna do the move in the game. We're gonna try and look at this in a second. So the move in the game is just trying to play against the splitter tile. The downside is that we sacrifice 1 point. And then what's going to happen there? This is the final thing to analyze. So if our opponent gets a city cap, if on their next tile our opponent gets a city cap, they lose instantly because they don't have a productive move, and then we have one of our two options. After this move, we're still going to preserve a 3-point lead. If they get a road monastery, they're going to go here for 9 points. But then we're going to go with a straight line here for 9 points, and we're still going to preserve. We're still going to preserve the lead over here. Okay. If their next tile is the monastery. Oh wait, no, it doesn't work. If they get the city splitter, they're going to go here and block the connection. If they get the city cap, yeah, you see, that's the problem. So what we did here, we didn't actually minimize the impact of their move. Because they have another move which is like almost just as good with a city cap. So if we do this, yeah, then with the city cap, they go here, they block our connection if they know it. And then if we get a straight line, we lose. If we get the monastery, we win because of this, but it didn't change. So we do lose in like 1 in 6 scenario. Okay, if their next tile is the road monastery, then they're gonna go here and connect, putting down us at -6. In that case, if we get the city splitter, then we lose because we can't score enough points. The maximum we can score is 4, which is gonna finish us the game at -2. If we get the straight line, then we still win because they connect, we connect, we've already been through that. Okay, so far we're winning in half scenarios. What happens if their next tile is the straight line? Then they connect. And then again, it's the same scenario. If we get the splitter, we lose because we can score only 4 points. And if we get the road monastery, then of course all is well and we can score 6. Oh yeah, by the way, to rub it in, not only do we get to score only 4 points, with their final tile with the road monastery, after connecting to this field at the bottom, they get to use this monastery here to expand their field at the bottom and add this extra castle to this guy. So this move appears to be the second best move, which wins half of the time. So yeah, still, honestly, pretty good move as it gets, but there's a difference. We had a 66% winning chance, but we went for the 50% winning chance, and now we get to see how it played out. They get the monastery first, and we get the dreaded city cap. The best that we can do is we take the 4 points. They get the straight line, and they're not going to help us with the field connection, and we're going to lose this game by the unfortunate 2 points that we had calculated. Yeah, it's a very complicated endgame. So for that, you really want to have a lot of time. And again, the move made strategic sense. It's eliminated a particular tile. Maybe seeing the blocking idea here with a city cap that they could use to prevent the invasion was one way to try and find the right move. But it's also quite interesting how the right move is also the intuitive one. Like if you don't know what to do, yeah, just continue your ruin, whatevs. 3 points are 3 points are 3 points. And it's maybe not as much fun because I want the crazier move, like the weirder looking move, to be the correct. But in both in several critical instances in this game, the very beginning and the very end, like simple is best. Anyway, I'm gonna say still a very well played game from Craft Giraffe, especially with mounting that comeback and like almost trying to work it. As you see, 95, 97, then I'm not sure whether these numbers that the point counter are pointing. So some lessons from this game. One is about simplicity versus complexity. Like, very often being simpler is best and just trying to be extra efficient and optimize absolutely everything might not be worth it for the winning probability, because the assessment of the position is not just about points, it's about meeple count as well. It's about scoring machines. So what is your potential for moves which don't require the investment of a meeple? What is the long-term versus short-term meeple disadvantage? So there are many factors. Which are the critical tiles that which you're going to need? Are they going to need to use them in a different square? So finally, going back to, well, actually, we don't need to do this. I think with the road, still decent move. Honestly, didn't work even that bad. Like, even without these two meeples, if they don't finish this big city, you're doing just fine. Even towards the end of the game, even though they didn't find a way to finish the city and put the game out of reach, you ended up in an end game that actually wins you half the time, even with this slightly suboptimal move versus this 66% over here. So even after all that, and this game was, of course, completely doable. But yeah, at the start, marginally better is probably to not over-optimize and just continue the 1 point in this particular instance. But I think later on, a very difficult fight, I think what turned this game was really this move over here. And initially, when I looked at it, it seemed to me like the best move. But the more I think about this position, the more I think that the not so simple idea, the counterintuitive idea of just finishing your meeple here and sacrificing this here guy is really good enough to get the positions, because this would give you two meeples in hand already, and two meeples and one meeples is just such a big difference. For example, with two meeples in hand, this move here would not be a consideration, and that eventually led to the loss of that big city. So yeah, another way to think about this is that you lose some value from temporary meeple disadvantage. Like, you lose some value from having only one meeple in hand for, I know, 5-10 moves or something like this. And then it might be worth more than the potential chance of drawing a starting tile and then continuing, not even necessarily continuing, and not even necessarily finishing, but continuing that road. So yeah, probably with this, maybe like a slight imprecision, probably getting a meeple back in hindsight there was a little bit better, especially because there already was this setup which was going to be the source of advantage of green, and once green completes this, really, if not for the city over here, there will be nothing for green to worry about in this position. And then meeple schmeeple, this guy, we actually ended up not needing. So yeah, that'll be my take of this. Incredibly interesting game. Part of it, like, from a strategy standpoint, but part of it, like, purely really psychological, kind of when it's better to go for simple things and when it's better to go for complicated things. Oh, Elias is suggesting that the point counter counts the field again after they already scored because the meeples are still there. Yeah. Ah, that's actually really neat. And it does make sense because Amasyunkula has more farmers. Alrighty, well, we're not analyzing another game today. By the way, this is like the longest analysis ever of a game on stream in the 3 years I've been doing this channel, so record breaking, yay. Maybe I could have worded things a bit simpler, but there was just a lot of complexity in this position. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing this lovely game with us, Raf, and for your teammates and the international community for participating in such a vivid discussion, which sparked the idea of covering it on stream. So sleepy time for most Europeans, not for me. I decided that things seem to be going well, fingers crossed. I will be still streaming in 3 hours. And that's going to be Japan versus United States for the first spot in Group E. This is the match here. So to most of you, I say good night. To those of you who are in the Western Hemisphere, the evening is just starting. So before you leave, make sure to like this video if you like this video. And honestly, if you're still here at this hour, then you probably do. So do contribute to the algorithm. Please, we want to bring more competitive more people to the joys of competitive Carcassonne. Consider subscribing, of course, unless you already have, but I assume the majority already have. And in case you like this sort of content very, very much, then consider supporting this channel via the super thanks button somewhere on the screen. It should have been enabled. That's it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'ma see you soon.